This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I've had a few YouTube personalities on my show before, like the Cinema Snob and, the Shit Flick Critic and, and every once in a while, I find when it just grabs me. Those two I thought were really, really interesting personalities, and I enjoy watching their videos. Well, you know what? I discovered a new one. Some people call him Spam Chucker Jones, but we also call him Troy Oelke. How do you do, Troy?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic as well, yes. Yeah, I just discovered you recently, and I was like checking over all your videos. I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. This guy needs help.
Well, yes, I've been accused of having a screw loose or two.
You know what? I gotta say, I want you to relay to the audience how you got the name Spam Chucker Jones.
Okay, actually, we had a local radio station around here in town, and I was working construction for many years, so I would listen to the radio at all times, pretty much. And I got into a lot of radio contests, and one of the contests that I got into was literally throwing cans of Spam across the room into a bucket, and I ended up winning it. So they called me Spam Chucker Jones.
and it stuck?
It did, and then, actually, what was funny, originally, I went to, because when I was first on Facebook for a few years, and then started to hear these weird things about how they're, sharing your information or all this and all that, and I got kind of like paranoid, so I'm like, well, I'll just use Spam Checker Jones. For years, I just used Spam Checker Jones. Now I'm just using my real name, but, I just decided to throw up the Spam Chucker, and be goofy, and, it stayed with me for years.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's a little paranoia, yeah. It kind of put Zuckerberg under the radar, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of, of course, weirder rumors than even the things that actually happened. So, and that was the like when the early years of Facebook, before people figured out that some things are baloney and, that kind of thing. So it was the earlier years, and it was, it was just something simple. I'm like, I'll just use this alias for a while, and it just stuck.
Yeah, I went by Python Hyena for a while as well, but I found when I reached out to people to interview, I don't know if they took me seriously because of the name.
Right. No,
yeah.
I get that. I've had... pretty much for the same reason I ended up changing my name back, because it just sounds like, it could be potentially some sort of a, phishing site or some troll or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, of course, we're both involved in 13 Fanboy. I'm a co-producer, and you're what, an associate producer?
Yes, sir.
So that means you associate with the producers?
It does. Yeah, they actually, being an associate producer, they are supposed to name either a character, a street, or a business in the movie after me, which I thought was fantastic. I've been a horror movie fan my entire life, and, it was just a neat opportunity.
That reminds me, I saw one of your videos. I gotta say, how in the world did you get your daughter to do a reading with Kevin Bacon?
Oh, okay, so this was actually my niece.
Oh, that's your niece.
She's a hoot. See, I've been doing little skit videos and that kind of thing for years, and kind of got her into that when she was young. We made a few fun little videos. Like I had her do one where she told silly children's Halloween jokes and that kind of thing. So she's always been kind of a ham for the camera, and then 13 Fanboy came out, and the fabulous Deborah Voorhees was asking for the fan casting audition tapes and such, and she did say all ages, so we took a little chance, thinking maybe there could be a small part for a young Haley, and Haley being the main character, I guess, in 13 Fanboy, whose grandmother is being stalked by the fanboy.
Okay.
And so she looks similar to the gal that's playing, Haley Greenbauer, I think is her real name. I'm sorry, I can't remember the character's name. But so she looks similar to her. And so she wanted to do the reading. And so I said, okay. And so the 13 Fanboy Indiegogo campaign site, which people can still donate to and have their name in the credits, but they had 4 things to choose from for reading parts, 4 scenes to choose from or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so she chose Marcy from the original Friday the 13th that did the scene with Kevin Bacon, and it was about the scene where they were talking about the rain and how it turns to blood and everything. And so she really wanted to do it, and she came over to my house, and she had already remembered everything, by heart and everything. So it was a lot of fun.
And you, of course, the joke here, you stuck the name Kevin on a bag of bacon.
Yeah, pack of bacon. I can't help it, man. I grew up with Benny Hill, Monty Python, and horror movies. So somewhere in there, you get me.
I gotta say,
not to make a joke.
I gotta say, in the original Friday the 13th, that scene is one of the most boring scenes in the movie for me.
It is.
Like, everybody talks about Kevin Bacon being in it, but and no offense, Kevin's a fine actor, but I think he had kind of the most boring part in the movie. Am I wrong to say that?
No, I would agree with you 100%. His character was kind of lackluster. I think if I'm not mistaken, he'd only done one movie before that.
Animal House.
I want to say it was Animal House, which was filmed here in my home state of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his part was really small, but one of the most memorable deaths for sure.
I like the scene with him and Ron Milky, the cop, of course, Officer Dorff. I did like him.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know, like, when you look at, like, the only reason a lot of these reviews mention him is because he went on to do Footloose and whatnot. But if he didn't go on, you wouldn't see these movie reviews put his name up so high.
No, I agree with that. In fact, I believe it was Bill from Part 1 who was basically nailed to the door of the generator house with arrows.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that Bing Crosby's son?
Bing Crosby's grandson, I think.
Yeah,
Harry Crosby.
Yep. Crosby, and which I thought was, that's a big name in and of itself. But I was kind of surprised. Some of those other people I didn't really see. I mean, or you thought they would have sold the Crosby name a little harder.
Yeah. But
once Kevin went on to, I guess they can use that retrospectively now.
And I got nothing against Kevin Bacon. It's just that I don't know.
I know exactly what you're saying. It's like he's a great actor and he's done lots of great stuff, but in that particular role, it was rather lackluster. Really,
yep.
He didn't. They didn't give him a bunch of personality, really.
No, they did not. Yeah. In fact, I find some of the smaller roles in the movie were kind of more out there. Like, I would have liked to have had another scene or two with Officer Dorff or another scene with Crazy Ralph. They just lit up the screen.
I liked Ned's part too. When when he threw on the Indian headdress and was dancing around in his underwear or whatever, and then of course the cop showed up and he was like, oh.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty good character. I think that could have had a few more scenes. And then he kind of disappeared pretty quick. Yeah,
absolutely. But I know that you had mentioned something, and I think the first time you and I connected, I think it was last week, there was some post, I think it might have even been on Debbie Sue Voorhees' site there, where, and I don't even know what it was to now, but I was answering something about Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and I said that, I wish they'd go back and they'd make they talk about reboots. I'm like, why not remake Jason Takes Manhattan and make the movie that we were originally promised.
Oh, I cannot tell you how much I would love that. So I have seen every single Friday the 13th movie on opening night, starting with Friday the 13th Part 3. I saw it in 3D. Freaked me out. The glasses weren't green and blue. They were clear. And boy, the 3D was amazing. But when I went to see Part 8, I was so excited about this because also growing up, I was a big Toho Godzilla fan, like the 70s and mostly the 50s, 60s, 70s Toho Godzilla, where it was a lot of fun. But when they said Jason Takes Manhattan, I mean, in the name alone, it's just unlimited possibilities, you know what I mean? And I was really expecting something like, there was going to be attacks on the Statue of Liberty and then this and then that, and then now today I'll watch the beginning of the movie and I can still feel the excitement I had when I saw the very beginning of the movie in the theater. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was highly disappointed, and I understand that there are budget restrictions, but it's Jason Takes Manhattan, not Jason Takes a Boat. You know what I mean? And spending 80% or 90% of the movie on some little boat and then like two scenes in an alleyway or whatever. I mean, the one great scene, of course, was with Kane, and where he walked by and kicked the radio from the punk rockers. Yeah, and that was their big here we are in New York thing, But like I said, I understand the restrictions as far as money and what it might cost to shut down certain sections of New York. But even Escape from New York faked New York.
Yeah.
So I really felt like they should have done the polar opposite. 10% of the movie on the boat, 90% of the movie in New York would have been fantastic, and I think that's what people were expecting when they went, but it didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah, I interviewed Adam Marcus, the director of Jason Goes to Hell, and he was telling me that he and Sean S. Cunningham had seen Jason Takes Manhattan, and he said that Adam said he was highly disappointed, and I guess Sean Cunningham hated it. And I think that is why Jason Goes to Hell kind of neglected everything that happened after. And, of course, let's not forget the ending of Jason Takes Manhattan. Like, no wonder they wanted to forget it.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 9 was quite a a left turn, or out of left field, I guess. The whole body switching thing, the whole again, you have the Necronomicon shows up, the crate from Creepshow. Now, when I first saw this was a little disappointing to me too at first.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just caught off guard by the body switching. And I think there was a relatively popular body switching movie going on at the time, but
The Hidden.
But there was a lot of cool parts. Now, right in the very beginning, I was super excited about it because the way that the full SWAT team, and they finally brought in, everybody to take down Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really neat. And then, there's certain movies that when you go and you watch them, you're disappointed. Now that you can look back and rewatch them, of course, they, they have some sentimental value and that kind of thing. Like, for instance, Part 5 for me at first, when I went and saw it, I mean, I really liked the movie. I did. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really entertaining. I was a little disappointed at the end when you find out it's not Jason, but now looking back, I think it's fantastic. It was a great little throw you off the trail. I mean, had that been the last movie, that might have been viewed differently, but the fact that it was in there kind of, and then 9 for me is a little bit the same way, where they took something a little bit out of left field and threw a monkey wrench in your system per se, and gave you a surprise ending like the original. That's what I love about the original was people just look at it right now as a slasher film, but what they don't understand, in 1980 when it came out, people were blown away that this was Jason's mom. This wasn't a guy out there killing everybody. It turned out to be a woman, and then of course she turned out to be one of the classic actresses of all time too, which was cool. So I always enjoyed that about Friday the 13th, and like the first couple weren't as campy, but then you start to like the campiness after a little while. It just becomes so much fun. You're basically rooting for Jason,
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about Jason Goes to Hell, Adam Marcus has said that the reason the body switching thing came about is that Sean S. Cunningham wanted him to take the mask off of Jason. Now, Sean has come out, and Adam and I talked about this, said that, that's not true. And I remember reading that in Fangoria magazine when it had Jason Goes to Hell on the cover, that Sean wanted the hockey mask off of Jason. So I'm sorry, nothing against Sean, but I kind of side with Adam Marcus on this, because Adam just tried to do something different, but it did kind of throw a monkey wrench in his relationship with Sean. I know that.
Well, like if he actually did say to get rid of the mask, which is something I hadn't heard before, if the director said to Adam, I want you to make a Jason movie, but I want you to take off the mask, then it's a pretty clever. I mean, everything becomes cliche at some point, so you got to kind of change it up. And and like I said, it's funny because looking back now, I can appreciate so much more, and especially 9 when they the little hidden Easter eggs, and in the end with Freddy's glove grabbing the mask and pulling it down. I mean, that was full of. That was like our first glimpse at, Freddy versus Jason. Everybody wants this. This could be a thing, And if I'm not mistaken, was it not Kane Hodder that wore the glove that pulled the mask down?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's basically played Jason, Freddy, Michael, everybody at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Darn nearly.
Yep. No, I grew up with these movies, too. I had an uncle that owned a video store. Cool. Throughout most of the 80s, and then they used to scare the living crap out of me. I didn't like the blood and gore, and but I soon became. I think the first one I saw was part 2, and my older brother and cousins was baiting me into watching it, and I didn't want to. But I'm one of these people that wants to see evil get vanquished in the end, and of course, evil did not get vanquished, and it was actually when my brother got me to watch the final chapter, which of course wasn't the final chapter, but at least Jason got vanquished, So I was a little happier about that. But I remember, and I've told this story a million times, Kristen Baker in part 2 became the first woman I ever seen naked, and that was the moment my mom came in and shut the TV off.
Yeah, now she was the short hair with the short shorts on, right? With
yeah.
The, shot in the butt with the little slingshot there.
Yep.
And she ended up in the shack room with Pamela's head.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you see her there.
She was very pretty.
Yep. No, I interviewed Russell Todd, who was the guy who was hanging upside down the trap, and he told me that, if I ever get Kristen Baker on my show, and I'd love to get her, he said she'd get a kick out of the fact that she was the first woman I ever seen nude.
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone the other day, and I said, if you take all of the films, 1 through, we'll just say 10, forgetting the reboots, and Freddy vs. Jason, I'm like, what? Overall, including guys and girls, what cast had the best-looking group of people? And in my opinion, it's 2. Like all the girls, Vicky, every girl was really cute. And then, I've heard lots of people that really thought the guy in the wheelchair was a good-looking guy. And then you had, of course, the guy you were talking about, Scott or whatever. They got hung up upside down by the trap and all that. And yeah, there's a lot of really cute girls in there, for me anyway.
Okay, before we talk timeline, let's play this. For me, I've always had a favorite female in every one of them. Because I'm sorry, Jason's ugly, I got better things to look at, Mm-hmm. So we'll go through each part here. In the original, who is the woman you were most attracted to in the original?
In the original, I want to say it was actually Brenda.
Laurie Bartram. Unfortunately, she's
Something
gone
about
too.
her, I liked her big eyes. I thought she was. I liked her character. She was just such a nice person. I don't know. I really thought that she was, for me, she was the prettiest one in that one that I kind of connected to at the time.
Okay. Oh, I won't fault you on that. Me, it's Adrienne King, and I gotta say, I remember seeing her first. Like I said, saw part 2 first, and I remember when I saw the first one finally. I actually really wanted to see Adrienne King, and my favorite shot in the movie was always that first scene with her where they have that close-up of her smiling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I always liked Adrienne. One of the things I do like about her in this movie, I don't think she's got quite the depth that Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode has, but I love the fact that you can't really pinpoint her as the heroine when you first watch it.
You know, I totally agree with that. Like, J.R. Ewing from the old days when at Dallas, who shot J.R.?
Mm-hmm.
You know, watching that movie, I learned to hate Larry Hagman because he was such a good actor, and I realized later in my life, he made you hate him because he was J.R. and he was really good at it. For me, Alice was kind of such and I love them for this. I love how they didn't doll her up and try to make her your standard bleach blonde bimbo. I mean, she literally was the girl next door. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because she's still very pretty, but they just had her as just like the plain Jane, the kind of quiet girl, and then, you know, of course she becomes the hero and becomes powerful and everything. But in the same way as Jer, I think that was sold as her being just, you know, the quiet, plain Jane girl. I mean, Brenda was too, but you know, I know it was weird. I just didn't really notice her as much as, but I look back now and I was like, wow, she was really a cute girl. But at the time, I was just like, oh, that Brenda.
Well, you know what? I think Brenda's death scene was the creepiest in the entire movie. Because you just hear that voice, you know, and you don't see the death scene. It's just, you just hear that screech. I think, to me, that is kind of the creepiest scene in the movie.
Yeah, sometimes what you don't see is even scarier because of, you know, sometimes let loose in your own head can be the scariest of all. And, like, for me, that's what I thought made the Blair Witch success. Was I'm so glad that they didn't show the witch. A lot of people hate that movie now, but me as a small video maker, when I saw that movie in the first place and the campaign they did before it, you know, putting in websites and stuff to make it appear as though it's real, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. They spent $60,000, and it was absolutely amazing, especially from the point of view of a guy who films with a camcorder and his phone, and that, you know what I mean? It was, I thought that was really brilliant, and that's what I loved about Friday the 13th originally. I mean, we were just kind of getting into the slasher genre at that time, but them throwing in the mother, you had, not only was a surprise ending, but it, you know, for me, it had a little bit of a psycho feel because, you know, mother's in there, and just, it, like, I don't know, I thought it was really well done. And the fact that they used Betsy Palmer, and she was amazing. I mean, she did it for a Scirocco, but I'm glad she did. And in the music, Harry Manfredini, man, I absolutely love that music. I could listen to the soundtracks over and over again, and then when I watch like Sleepaway Camp, you know, and that kind of thing or whatever, you can tell instantly, oh, that's Harry.
Yeah, I like the score best to part 2.
Yeah, I you know what's funny is that even part 3, it's got that weird disco, and I just love it. I absolutely do. I sometimes I'll just listen to the soundtracks, and you know, it just there's good scores, and a good score can make a movie twice as good as it is.
Yep.
I mean, I couldn't imagine what Star Wars would have been without John Williams. I mean, it wouldn't have been half of what it is.
Okay, part 2, favorite female. Which one were you most attracted to?
Okay, my personal favorite, and I'm sorry I don't remember her name at the moment, but she was stabbed through while making love, and then
Marta Kober.
Yeah, part 4, the brother came looking for his missing sister.
Yeah.
What was her name in that? I can't remember, but they found
Sandra.
Yeah, she had, her hair was a little odd, just because it was like the 80s and not styled much or whatever, but she was beautiful and also cute. And when you get a combo of those two things, she was definitely my favorite. And I've been watching again. See, originally my favorite, like when I first saw the movie, was Kirsten, short hair, short shorts. That's a hard scene to forget, and she was just so pretty. But no, I think her. She's just she's the one that stuck with me.
For me, it's kind of a tough choice because I know Kristen Baker, of course, is in my memory because she was the first woman I see naked. But I also have a special place for Amy Steele as well. Yes,
had a big crush on her, and I remember seeing her in her because she wasn't in a ton of stuff. I mean, so the April Fools, and I also saw her in like a Double Mint gum commercial. There was an old gum commercial. It was like, oh, that's the girl from Friday the 13th Part 2, you know, and. She is a classy gal, and I think she's really pretty in a supernatural way. Like where you really wouldn't have to put a bunch of makeup on her because she's just a beautiful woman.
Now, Part 3, favorite female.
Oh my goodness, buddy! This is okay. So my top 3 crushes on Earth, growing up from the age of 14 till whatever, were Jamie Lee Curtis. And then Dana Kimmel from Part 3, Chris Higgins. I had the biggest, because she was also in like tons of the TV shows I was watching, Facts of Life, Different Strokes, or whatever. You know, it's a lot of those things that I was watching. She was a guest star on a lot, and she, to me, like I said, this was so I saw the Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 on either video or some sort of cable. I can't remember. Right before I went and saw Part 3, and it's the reason why I went and saw Part 3. But, when I saw Dana Kimmel, and she's got the voice she's like the perfect 80s girl, I guess, and I had just a gigantic crush on her.
Yeah, and I could say the same thing about Traci Savage.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, she was the reason I took part in 13 Fanboy, was Traci Savage was in it.
Yes.
Yeah. I always felt bad that she got killed off. I loved...
yeah, and the poor pregnant girl, for crying out loud, you know? I was like, uh-oh.
Boy, they forget that in the screenplay.
But her boyfriend's death is one of my top 5. Walking on the hands there. I don't think there's much worse than that, from a guy's point of view, anyway.
Now, the final chapter, what female you were most attracted to?
Now that one's interesting.
That's a hard one for me because every one of the females in it are stunning.
I agree. I think for that one, the one that stood out for me was Judy Aronson, because I was a big fan. I actually worked in my first real job was working in a movie theater, and Weird Science played 100 times, and I watched it 100 times. And she was Robert Downey Jr. and I forget his partner's name, but those were the main girls that were flirting with him, or the girls that they ended up getting in the end. And I just when I saw her then, I thought, wow, that girl is really cute. I liked her. I thought she was cuter than the blonde. No offense to the blonde, but this was my taste. And and I remember right when I saw her in that, I was like, that's her. That's from Weird Science. And I thought she was, and still is, a very beautiful woman.
You get a preference for Part 5? I'm going to tell you right now, it's Melanie Kinnaman for me.
Yeah, for me, that one, that's a tough one. Honestly, I don't want to just say Deborah Voorhees because she is fabulous and runs my favorite page and all that, but she, again, it was one of those the 80s girls for me. She had done like some ads where she was like on a BMX bike, and she just had like the perfect 80s feathered hair, really cute face, and I always kind of preferred a little darker hair myself.
Okay.
And I thought I think she had one of the coolest deaths in, again, my top 5. It's not necessarily the stab in the eyes. It's that last little snip right at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that my nose being snipped would hurt more than, or it'd be the worst part of me having my eyes stabbed out. But, I thought Deborah was great. And she was probably my favorite in there.
What about part 6?
Part 6, oh boy, I really liked Sissy.
Sissy. Yeah.
Yeah. Something about her I really liked. And then when she just got pulled out the window and her head twisted off, like, oh, dang it.
You know what? I always liked Carrie Noonan, who played Paula, and I always felt bad. They talk about the good girls always survive, and Jennifer Cook was being bad all through it, and poor Paula got slaughtered, and she was the good one.
Exactly. See, that's that, and Brenda from the beginning. I mean, she wasn't up to no good.
Mm-hmm.
The girl, was it Vicky from part 2? I mean, she was trying more or less to flirt with the guy in the wheelchair, but I don't think she really did much.
You know,
she wanted to have some sex with her, but she was almost a little too innocent to be murdered.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Vicky, I guess.
I am good friends though with Nancy McLaughlin from Jason Lives. Though she is lovely. She's a
fantastic.
Yeah, she
Nikki
did.
Was the other one that was my my favorite in that one.
Yeah,
like the whole RV scene and that was.
Oh, Darcy DeMoss. Yeah.
That was fun.
And of course, part 7, Lovelar Park Lincoln.
Yeah, I'm just going to say right there, Lar, for sure. In 7, she was my favorite. I thought she was adorable back then, and she somehow got better looking over the years.
Well, we're going.
She's a hoot, but she was my favorite.
Well, I'm going to cut away from that for a minute because I wanted to ask. I mean, I could talk about girls all day, but I did want to ask, what was it like? What was Friday the 13th Part 3 like in 3D?
Okay, so for me, I grew up on. I've always loved horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my childhood was we had the monster movie matinees on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So you had all the different Godzillas, which was up till the 70s Toho's. You had all of the Universal monsters with the Frankensteins and the Draculas, and my personal favorite, the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started playing on television, like one in particular, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And you could go down to your local, I want to say it was maybe a 7-Eleven at the time. I don't remember exactly what it was, or where, but you got your red and green glasses, or red and blue. And then, ABC or Channel 12 or whatever it was would be airing Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. And so everybody would go get their glasses and you'd watch it. It was red and the green or whatever. It was really cool. But so I had watched Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2. And I literally grew up on a lot of those black and white. And like I said, the Universal Monsters stuff. And my mother took me to the theater. That was our thing. We used to watch movies, talk TV. And one night we were watching Siskel and Ebert. And Siskel and Ebert had about, I want to say it was nearly 15 minutes of Halloween. And it ended up the scene where Jamie Lee was in the closet and stabbed Michael in the eye with the hanger and all that, and then whatever. And then she's standing in the doorway. And Michael sat up. Well, I nearly crapped a cat right there. I looked at my mom like, what the heck? That's not supposed to happen. And we both, that scared the living bejesus out of me. I had never seen anything like that. So right after that, shortly after that, I was like, this, it was kind of a new horror age for me. And my friends had Friday the 13th 1 and 2. Again, I can't remember if it was on VHS Beta or if it was on some cable channel they had. But I went and watched 1 and 2 at their house, in a row. And I'm not going to lie, they scared the living crap out of me. Because I'd never, I went from Universal monsters and that kind of thing to this. And it was really, really scary. And then, so Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D was coming out in the theater, and I was not of age. But my uncle was really cool. He's the one that he was he took me to Creep Show and those kind of things. Like, I wasn't old enough. So I said, look, I really like these movies. And they're, of course, they're like, I think I was 13 at the time. They're like, you're a little young for these kind of, and I'm like, no. And so my uncle took me. And when we got there, they handed us the glasses. The glasses were clear. Like, both lenses were the same non-color of clear. And I'm like, what? It was bizarre. I've never seen anything like it. All the glasses were green and red or blue and red. Mm-hmm. And so I went in the theater, and this was I guess, a true 3D of some sort. And I went in there, and I mean, every scene, and you can still see each one in part 3, in not 3D, where the snake comes to bite you. You've got the rat that comes out on the little stick. Mm-hmm. The kids playing stickball in the beginning where they stick the stick out at you. But to me, and these were amazing, and I mean, like, very realistic 3D. But it was when Chris Higgins hit him in the face with the hatchet in the barn at the end, and he just reached his hands out. His hands were coming over the seat, and I scrunched down in my seat trying to avoid his hands touching me. And I mean, it sent the hair on my arms stood up. It freaked me out. I'd never seen not only 3D like that, but this is the first time seeing part 3. My first time seeing a Friday the 13th movie in the theater. And I mean, it literally, everyone else in the theater disappeared. I was alone. I was, and he was reaching over my seat. I like tunnel vision. It was amazing. An experience I could never recreate, of course, because it was my first time. And I've never seen a 3D movie as 3D since, ever.
I thought you were going to say your favorite 3D moment was when Jason is trying to find Dana Kimmel, and then she turns around on the thing and she falls down up on top of him. When he looks up, you got her ass coming to her. You're telling me that wasn't your favorite?
I could appreciate that more now, but at the time I was like, holy shit, run away from the guy with the hockey. It was like, I wasn't worried about Chris's butt at that time. I was
yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in 3D. The first one I saw in theaters was part 7. And I wasn't old enough to see it, but I remember a guy dressed as Jason with a fake machete ripped my ticket, so I got into parts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I've seen, as of right now, I've seen part 7 in the theater. I saw Jason X, which little said the better. And
anyone who goes to space that's not an astronaut has got problems.
Yeah, I've seen Freddy versus Jason, and I saw a midnight screening of the original, so there you go. And I'm hoping to see the others on big screen at some point. I think the one that would make the best event movie would be Jason Lives, because of all the pop culture references and all the humor in it. I think that one would be the closest to a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of event, would be Jason Lives.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites. I liked how they took the Jason Lives, and they really, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but they seemed to ramp up some of the comedy, a little bit more of the campiness, anyone standing in the middle of the road in the night with it's not a good idea, and just there's a lot of funny stuff in that. I liked how they took the comedic approach. I think depending if you're going to go campy and stuff like that, it's fun to have. Most horror movies have the comedy relief guy, the jock, the this, that. Mm-hmm. But then there's some movies that are genuinely scary that don't really have the funny guy. But I just thought 6 overall was probably the most fun, as far as fun. They kind of made it that way from the very beginning. I felt like with the whole Frankenstein almost, him coming back to life. I loved the sheriff. The sheriff was fantastic.
Yeah.
His relationship with his daughter.
Mm-hmm. You get a car chase in this.
yeah, for real. And the sheriff's death again, another amazing one. The bent over backwards, snapped in half.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite line in that entire movie, wherever the red dot goes, ya bang.
You mean it's not the ball, your balls as earrings?
Right? Yeah, I've been using the wherever the red dot goes for years.
Yeah, no, I like Jason Lives a lot, but Freddy versus Jason. I have a few issues. I remember mentioning this to you before. Ronnie Yu, I don't know why, was brought in to direct this film, because I read an article where he claimed that he hadn't seen any of the films in the franchise. I don't know whose bright idea to bring somebody who hadn't seen any of them in to direct this, but he went and he watched the original Nightmare on Elm Street and the original Friday the 13th. Now, watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I can see, you got Freddy Krueger, you got his backstory, you got everything you need. Friday the 13th on its own is fine as a slasher film, but if you're going to make a Friday the 13th movie and you haven't seen any of them, I wouldn't recommend you watch the original. I recommend, and I think Ronnie Yu should have been handed a copy of either Part 4, The Final Chapter, or Part 6, Jason Lives.
I agree. You see, Part 1, doing research as to Jason's character, from Part 1, what we learn is he doesn't swim very good, and he's got bad complexion.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The whole story really is Pamela's. So yeah, you would be a lot better off handing him Part 2, Part 3, but 1, you're kind of missing the entire point. Like you said, that's Pamela's the murderer, not Jason, and it wasn't. They took, if I'm not mistaken, Tom Savini's idea for a little surprise ending dream sequence of having Ari jump up out of the lake. Was like a last minute thing, and then luckily they had that, and then they took off. Obviously from there and made everything else about Jason. But yeah, that would be the wrong movie to learn about Jason. I mean, all you get from that really is he wasn't a very good swimmer, and you get her little story of what happened.
He should have watched either the Final Chapter or Jason Lives. Those would be the two, I think. Those two.
I agree.
Yep. Because there you get the hockey mask, there you get Jason dying in one, or you get zombie Jason in the other. I think you get the whole kit and caboodle in those two movies, I think.
Yes.
Yep. And also, and I know Kane Hodder will agree with me, even though I've never had him on here. Hopefully I'll get him on here at some point, but why in the hell did they not bring Kane Hodder in for Freddy vs. Jason? To me, I find that frustrating, and I know I'm not alone in that.
I agree. I think that it's just one of those Hollywood politics type of things. I want a new guy. I don't want to. I want to change directions or whatever. I mean, that's all I can think of, because Kane, at that point, what he'd done 3 in a row,
4,
and. And so, my favorite's Richard Brooker, obviously because of the 3 or whatever, but I love Kane. Kane really, and I love CJ too, but Kane kind of was so good at body motion, acting with, you know what I mean, body language.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to move, and you kind of, the way he tilts his head or the way he raises his shoulders or the way he does this or that, you can kind of tell what mood he's in without him saying a word. And again, I thought that that when Kane joined is when we were kind of at the height of our fun in the Friday the 13th. We were basically rooting for Jason at that point.
And Kane enjoyed playing the part too.
Oh, I could imagine.
Yeah.
And it's so iconic and everything too. But I thought he did a really good job. And then I think that I haven't really read why they chose Ken over him, but I would just personally, if I had to guess, I would say it was some Hollywood politics where someone wanted their guy and they didn't want to be, everybody's too used to this guy or something. And they wanted it, like the new Child's Play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they've got they got rid of Charles Lee Ray, they got rid of the Voodoo, they got rid of the good guys. Now it's Buddy. They changed the look. Nothing there is Chucky. Nothing but the name Chucky. So I don't understand why on earth they wouldn't have just done this with their own new AI doll and created an entire new franchise. If you're going to change everything, why not do it? And I think it's a little bit of what they were doing. They were trying to stay in the vein and make the money off of the Friday the 13th, but it was probably just arguments between people. And I know that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Kane was very disappointed that he was not called up to play Jason in that.
Yep. My favorite Jason is Ted White from the final chapter. He's been a guest on here twice, and what a gracious guy. He was always my favorite, and I love the fact that he ran after his victims too. Like when he's chasing Kimberly Beck up those stairs, he's just scant inches behind her. You can feel that,
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And when she
it was a lot of fun. And then, of course, Tom Morga was his stunt guy.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a...
Tom Morga was the stunt guy in Part 5. Ted White.
That's right.
Ted White was Jason all the way through in Part 4.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
I was mixing those two. I've got a Facebook page called The Many Faces of Jason Voorhees, and I break down every single actor that's ever played Jason, including just the feet, just the hands, from every movie. And I believe it is the most comprehensive Jason actor list on the internet, as far as I know. I haven't found anybody that has more. And it's funny how, Jerry, what's her last name? Jerry Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah,
I don't know.
A female that played Jason at one point in Part 2.
Oh, you mean splashing in the... Oh, no, that wasn't.
Yep.
You mean going across the...
Yeah, the credited as the Prowler.
Okay. Yeah, go after the little girl sings Itsy Bitsy Spider, and then you get Jason...
Splash, that's a female, and then she... that was one of the production assistants or whatever, for whatever reason they didn't have whoever, and I always thought that was neat. So there's a female that's played Jason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of interesting stuff, and of course, a lot of people get hung up on the timeline.
We're going to talk about the timeline because that was one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on here, is to talk about the timeline. This is a frustrating thing, and when I heard you talk about it, I was like, wow, you really put some stuff together that I think is terrific. So I'm going to give this platform to you to talk about the timeline.
Okay, so just in a general overall form, my theory is if you change the killer in the hood in Part 2 from Jason to actually Elias, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I've come up with a theory where I ignore all graphic novels, stories before, and I'm just going off the actual motion pictures themselves. And then so I kind of did a backstory myself. Basically, Elias and Pamela are married and live in their home with their young child, Jason, who's deformed. And it goes on about how Elias is kind of let's just say he's not the father of the year.
A prick.
Because he not only resents the fact that there's something wrong with Jason, but he believes it's not his son. And at the breakfast table one morning, he abuses Jason once again in his little high chair. And while Pamela was cooking with her big cast iron skillet, she'd had enough. She turned around and she bashed his brains in and continued to hit him until basically he was dead. So what this does, first of all, if you look at Warrington Gillette's Jason crashing through the window, he's got a beard. He's got black hair. And the side of his face that's deformed or looks deformed also looks burned. So she bashed his skull in so bad, it like his eye socket sunk a little bit and everything, and his skin looks like it was burned. Now, what people have a problem with in the timeline too is, so when Chris Higgins was attacked by the man in the woods, he was wearing the green shirt and the light pants, the same outfit he's wearing when he kills Harold.
Can I point out something here? If she's mentioning this, of course, in a flashback sequence, she doesn't really go into what he's wearing. How would you counter that? Because maybe they show him like that, but what she's saying and what they're showing could be two different things. And
this is true. However, the way I look at it is, as she is describing this to her boyfriend, she has already told people before the full details of everything she remembers.
Okay.
So as she's telling her boyfriend the general idea of what happened, the details that she has in her head, the actual full details, are there for us to see on screen.
Okay.
And so this would have happened. And now remember, this was in her past, whether it was the summer before, 2 summers before, 5 summers before, or whatever, this happened to her. Now, that tells me, so part 3 was directly after part 2. So technically it would be Saturday the 14th, if I'm not mistaken, because they're looking at Ginny on the news. I think it was Edna or Ethel, whatever her name is.
Edna.
And they saw her on the news. So this is the very, very next day. Now, when Jason shows up again, he's wearing the same thing Chris Higgins had seen him in when he attacked her. So this is the same timeline as Elias or the Hooded Killers running around in the flannel.
Okay.
Now, they wear the same stuff like forever because, they don't really shop for clothes. They got what they got and they used it. So, and that kind of leads me to another weird thing. Is like a lot of people ask, why on earth Kirsten's body's in the room? I forget her character's name, but okay, so it's her, the sheriff who had got the hammer in the back of the head, and what appears to be Alice.
Yeah.
Screwdriver in the head, got the robe on.
Yeah.
So a lot of people wonder why on earth that one. I mean, okay, so the cop got killed in there. He was in there when he got killed. That explains that. Alice, he brought back to show Pamela. I got her. So my theory behind the other random girl being there is she not only had short hair like Pamela, kind of, a little flashbacks after his head beat in, and I think that he brought her there for Jason. This is a girl. And I think Jason kind of touched her a little bit, and then I think this is what led to him trying to attack Chris Higgins.
Okay.
There's a lot to it. So my theory is...
You got to remember, the Chris Higgins flashback was a summer or two prior to part 2, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he'd been wearing that for a while. Now...
another thing I want to point out, too. Remember when he gets the mask knocked off him by Corey Feldman in the 4th one, and he turns around, and this is brought up. You see him you see him reaching out, and it's been pointed out by people working on the film that he's reaching out towards Kimberly Beck's breasts. You ever hear that before?
I hadn't, but it makes sense now because he's curious. But so I guess back to when he abused Jason at the breakfast table. She beat his head in, thought he was dead. Well, as he's dying or going into unconsciousness, she then turns her attention to Jason, who, during the scuffle, a knife or something slid towards him, and she starts telling him, "You're a good boy, Jason. Your mommy's proud of you." Blah blah blah. To get the knife from him and all that. And as Elias is slipping into unconsciousness, well, she throws his body in the truck and dumps him off in Crystal Lake, not too far from their cabin. Well, he survives, and he's brain damaged and a little bit psycho already. So he, builds his makeshift shack out of everything. And so later, when Jason drowns, he is actually out doing his normal trapping and hunting just to survive, and he sees Jason kind of in the reeds or whatever on that. So he grabs him, throws him over his shoulder, and basically throws him into a room in his shack. Now, you'll notice when they pan the shack, when the police officer's there, there's a high chair there. So,
Yep.
again, he wasn't really like a father of the year, but there was something in the back of his head. So he basically threw the kid in the room, and he wasn't going to help him at all. He'd kick him a bowl of slop now and again, but basically, you follow me and you learn and you live to survive or you die. And so Jason then followed him around, learned to trap, learned to feed himself, clothe himself, and otherwise take care of himself. And he witnessed and watched the majority of the Part 2 murders. Now, when Elias had raised Jason, sort of, without actually raising him. He just, gave him a place. He witnessed Pamela's beheading from across the lake. So when he saw this, he's the one that went over and retrieved her head. And when he was there retrieving her head, by the time he got around to that side of the lake, Alice was gone. So he took Pamela's head, and then he went into the camp, and he went through the files. And, he could see which one was Alice, and that's where he got her address to go get her.
Yeah, that's something that was brought up too. Jason finding out where she lives and this and that.
Yeah, people couldn't figure out how does Jason do it, because it wasn't Jason, it was Elias. He was able to, when he retrieved the head, he went right in and looked through the files and folders of the counselors that were to be there, and he was able to find her address. So Jason watched the majority of the kills in Part 2, and at some point, after Elias brought the body back to the shack, he tried to grab a girl himself, which was Chris Higgins. He wasn't very good at it. He was clumsy. He didn't know what the heck he was doing, so this is his first attempt. Now, after Elias was struck with the machete, he shows him crawl off or whatever, and then they got what a lot of people consider to be a dream sequence. And if I'm not mistaken, I swear that somebody said this was literally not a dream sequence, like Part 1 was, Part 3 was, but Part 2 wasn't. Either way, when you see Warrington Gillette come through, he's got a beard, he's got black hair, he doesn't look anything like the same Jason that's going on at the same time.
True.
By all the other Jasons look the same, but not this one. And I believe that's because that was his father. And so he learned from him. He learned how to kill, he learned how to trap, he learned how to do everything. And then once his father was killed, he was on his own. And because his father was killed with a machete, the machete became his weapon of choice. Now, the same thing, to me, kind of relates to Part 3. In the reason why Jason decided to don the hockey mask is because he saw his father wearing a mask all the time. And as he clumsily first attacked Chris Higgins and then started killing people, then he decided to don the mask, and now he was getting better and better. And then, of course, there's Roy. Now, I have a theory about Roy.
Okay.
That he is not as random as many people think. Roy is an ambulance driver around Crystal Lake, and he has been for a long time. He's a little bit younger than Pamela by a few years, but not much. So he was having an affair with Pamela, and that's part of the reason why Elias didn't like Jason, because he suspected that he wasn't his. Now, Roy, being the Camp Crystal Lake paramedic, ambulance driver, and or paramedic, he has been there for every murder, from Pamela's murders, not the 58 ones, but the ones at the camp in Part 1, and Part 2, and Part 3, and Part 4. He was one, at the end of each one of these shows, there's all the ambulances. He is in one of those ambulances each time. So he has an inside track to, like, Jason's MO and that kind of thing that only the police would know, other than him. So he had been having an affair with Pamela, and of course she got pregnant, and Jason was actually his son. So Roy has deformities and handicaps that run in his family, really strong. So he went on to marry someone, and they had the little boy Joey. Well, he didn't have the same physical handicap, but he had the same mental handicap. And Roy is kind of a jerk. He's not the nicest guy. He'd never talked to Pamela again once she had that kid, and it was deformed. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. That's enough of my time. No. So he decided not to try to pursue anything more with her or whatever. And then once Joey was born,
Yep.
A few years later, his wife passed on, and he is a jerk, and he resented Joe, resented him, because again, why do I have all my kids are problems, and so after the wife was gone, he dumped him at the facility there, and then when Vic killed him, of course he lost it then, but that's why he chose to use Jason as his, to kill as Jason, because that was actually his son. He knows the ins and outs of the murders and how they occurred, like all of them. And so he, like I said, other than the police, he would have been there to see and understand every little thing and see how these murders occurred. Like, you and I, in the newspaper would hear that these teens were killed or they were stabbed to death, but no one would know that they were hacked in the forehead or the machete or this or that. But he would, because he was there. And so I believe that Jason and Joey are actually brothers.
Okay.
That's what drove Roy to kill as Jason. And again, he put his son in that facility after his wife died because he resented the fact that he was handicapped. And it's the same reason why he never contacted Pamela again after she gave birth to what he thought was probably his child.
Isn't it weird that in part 5, the one person that doesn't get murdered is the guy that chopped Joey up?
Yeah, I always, they could make a Vic movie at some point.
I heard the actor that played Vic, he's gone now, but I heard he was a really, really nice guy in person, But I always resented the fact that, he took it out on all these people, but Vic is in jail, but he's alive.
Right. No, it's funny because, like, if you're innocent, you smoke a joint, have sex, or drink a beer, you're dead.
Yeah.
But if you murder someone, you'll go spend your life in prison, but you'll be alive.
Yeah.
Vic did not look like a very happy person.
No, he got upset over a chocolate bar, and that's another thing that really brings part 5 into hokiness. Is this all the start of a chocolate bar?
For real. I was like, here, have one of these. You're not yourself when you're
You're freaking right. That's funny. I never thought of that before.
Oh, that's another video I have. It's called Snickers the 13th. And I just did a little mashup with the Snickers commercial, and then I had Vic, or Joe, hey, have a chocolate bar. He's like, get out of here. He's like, no, come on. Then I voiced over, come on, Vic, you're not yourself when you're hungry. And then he just turns around and acts as him, just like, want to get away or whatever it is. But yeah, that's funny, over a chocolate bar, the whole damn thing. Because if he wouldn't have got killed, Roy wouldn't have went bananas and killed everybody else.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, and then of course you have some theories about Jason Lives and Jason Goes to Hell, and that kind of ties into Evil Dead and Creepshow. Talk about that.
Yes. Okay, so as far as Jason Lives, now one of my theories is that when Pamela, long after she killed her husband, and she sold the truck and got some money and bought a Jeep and all that, and she was working over at the camp, she rented out her cabin to make a little extra money while she was at the camp with Jason, because it was, they no longer have their breadwinner in the family anymore, so they gotta make all the money they can.
Yeah.
And so she rented it out to a professor and his wife. She didn't know much about them, except for that he's a well-known professor, and he's a scholar. So about as trustworthy as you can get to rent out your place.
Mm-hmm.
So this Professor Noby and his wife just returned from some weird castle over somewhere in some other place, and they needed a quiet place to do some research or to, study their findings. So she rented them out. Now, of course, I'm leading to the incantations of the Necronomicon.
Yep.
And Jason, in part 6, when Tommy digs him up and stabs him with the fence post before the lightning strikes. Now, okay, to lead up to that, Jason was Jason. He wasn't undead. He was killed in part 4. He was undead in part 6 and on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when she died, Pamela, she had left her cabin to her family member. It took a while to, go through the lawyering and that kind of thing, and finding her descendant and whatever. So Ash and his friends from Evil Dead cruised up to the Voorhees cabin, and when they started messing with the Necronomicon and whatnot,
mm-hmm.
That also unleashed it's basically responsible for the lightning bolt that struck Jason and brought him back from the dead. So he was a form of a deadite at that point.
Mm-hmm.
In part 6. And then in part 9, in part 9,
yep.
In the Voorhees house or whatever, you've got the nice thing, and you have the literal Necronomicon from Evil Dead 2.
Yep.
As well as the crate from
Creepshow.
Now, the crate from Creepshow opens up a whole other Pandora's box here, which we could go down. But the Necronomicon, and if I'm not mistaken, it was literally the prop from Evil Dead 2 that was used in Part 9.
Yeah, that was Adam Marcus's one thing he wanted to do.
I thought that was really, really cool. See, now that helps kind of with some continuity and connects us to the Evil Dead universe,
mm-hmm.
the Deadites. So that would lend a lot towards why he came back from the dead with all his vengeance stuff. So I think he got some of that due to the incantations, and it was on their family plot, and that kind of thing. And the Creepshow thing is something I want to really that could just really open up a bunch. But I thought it was fantastic how they had, and it was really brilliant because it makes people think, and then you got to come up with theories.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gone a whole bunch into why the crate's there and how it got there yet. I plan on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's these little things that I love to where I connect it. See, I had probably about 2-3 years ago, I did a video on my theory of how the killer in part 2 was actually Elias.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some people come in and go, what about this part? What about this part? What about this part? I'm like, okay, hold on. And I thought about it, and then boom, I got those answers. So slowly but surely, I wait and I hear a question from someone, this is hard to explain. And then, like I said, I ignore all of the graphic novels and comics and all that, and I'm just going off of the movies themselves, and then writing a story myself, filling in the blanks.
Here's a question I have. What did you think of Never Hike Alone? Because I really enjoyed it.
I did too, quite
mm-hmm.
a bit, because, I'm not a big fan of fan films, honestly. Even when they're done well, I'm like, why, if it was so good, why didn't you just, create a new character and you'd have yourself your own movie?
Mm-hmm.
But those of us Friday the 13th fans who, as you know, it's locked up in court for God only knows how long.
Yeah.
We love to see this, and I could see why these guys want to direct a movie and take their favorite character as their character. I could totally see why.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, I thought Never Hike Alone was not only tastefully done, in the same way the Blair Witch kind of thing, I thought it was brilliant in the fact
mm-hmm.
that they wrote a good story without, they didn't need a large cast, they didn't need a lot of special effects. But the story was solid, and I loved them finding the ribbons where the crime scenes had occurred.
Yep.
It's a fan film. I don't even consider it a fan film. I saw a trailer for one called I want to say it's Vengeance.
Yep.
And I saw the trailer first. I'm like, yeah, great, another fan. So, but now they're like, oh, we've got Harry Manfredini doing the music, and then the more I'm seeing about it, I'm like, wow, this might be really, really good.
And they got C.J. Graham playing Elias.
Yeah, and I love him, and I think that film is going to be in the same vein as Never Hike Alone, in the fact that this could just literally be, one of the other films.
And Steve Dash shows up for his last role.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and there's a lot of great fan films coming out there.
And they can kind of insert without hurting the timeline either.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I wish. See, what I would love to do is, I live next to or just over from Dark Horse Comics.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of stuff, and they graphic novels and movies. What I would love is someone to get a hold of me that's a graphic artist, and I would love to have someone take my story. And there's a lot more to it, but I would love them to take it and make a graphic novel out of it so it could be pitched for a movie. No one in every franchise movie, and I mean, it seems like every horror movie's done just about everything there is to do. There's some new, fresh ideas that are cool, but they're still kind of in the same vein. And I think, literally, no film has ever been made to shove into almost as a prequel and a sequel to explain timeline gaps. You know what I mean? And I really feel like people would. It would definitely be the talk of the town. They'd either be arguing over it or agreeing on it, but it would definitely be a subject of conversation.
I'm surprised they haven't done Jason in Snow yet. Can you imagine him breaking out of that lake?
Doing a sequel to the reboot with Derek Mears in the snow, but that keeps getting canceled.
Oh, wow.
I like the idea of the snow because it's a change of scenery entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Blood and snow stands out, but it could also be difficult to hide. Like Jason just pops up out of nowhere in the snow. There's going to be his footprints leading right back to wherever he just was. So it could be a little difficult.
And I still think they should redo Manhattan. Although I got to say, I've interviewed Peter Mark Richmond twice. I actually can get through Jason Takes Manhattan just because he, as the professor, I think kind of elevates beyond a lot of the badness for me.
Right.
Yep, I like him in it. But
no, I think they really, man, if they had, I feel so bad they didn't have the budget because, like I said, you got 90% on the boat, 10% in New York, which should have been the other way, and I think it really could have been something special.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand how, the guys that were making it probably knew this and were probably ready to give us a fantastic movie, but you got the producers going, hold on here. You know what it costs to shut down New York City at night?
Yeah.
Guys, you're going to have to find an alley. But, like I said, Escape from New York, man, that wasn't shot in New York at all.
Exactly, and it was done years earlier.
It was some town that was flooded and broken down or something, so they used it as, dressed it up like New York. They could have totally done something like that, but I'm not an expert on their budget or their budget restraints, that kind of thing. So, but I was disappointed because I had really high hopes for that, and I thought that would have been the coolest. The only person that would take Manhattan other than Jason would be freaking Godzilla.
Yep.
I think Jason Voorhees, Godzilla, and Chewbacca are the only three fake characters that each have, an award? God, they're all Lifetime Achievement Awards, I think. Jason, Chewbacca, and Godzilla. Don't quote me on the Lifetime Achievement, but they all share something in common. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart right now. But they are the only three that have fake characters that are recognized. I'll have to look into that one. I can't remember the name of it right now, but check that out. So it's Jason, Chewbacca, and Godzilla are the only three that are something. I don't remember right now.
And even Lar Park Lincoln went and I think she wrote a screenplay or something after Part 7 because she wanted to continue the Tina story. And it
Oh,
kind of
that
got...
would have been cool.
Yeah, like, and Lar loved, just like Kane Hodder, loved doing the movie, you know? She was a fan of the franchise.
Yeah, they kind of had like a little bit of a Carrie element in that one, which
Yep.
I thought was really cool. Had a lot of fun that we now had a young girl that has a sort of a supernatural power that she's not sure of. She doesn't know how to use yet. She's just learning what is actually going on with her. And then, of course, she's forced into learning how to use it. And, another one of those kind of concepts out of the blue. You know, you can only do so many movies where a guy's running around in just the woods killing people at a camp, you know. So I like how they made some of the changes. And
You want me to tell you something, though?
Sure.
One thing that bothered me in Part 7, and it bothered me in Part 8, why not go back to having the heroine versus Jason? Because, you know, like when Alice is alone at the end of Part 1, it's really creepy. I really hated it in Part 7, where you have Lar Park Lincoln as telekinetic Tina who can defend herself. Kevin Blair got in the way to the point where it's like, my goodness, why is he in this movie? I hated seeing him even survive the movie because it was like he got in the way. And I'll say the same thing about Scott Reeves' character in Jason Takes Manhattan, you know. It's like, oh my goodness, you know, let's go back. Because it's just like Brian De Palma said. It's not being sexist. He'd much rather see a woman in peril than Rambo in peril, you know.
Absolutely, because the woman stereotypically would be not only the weaker sex, but she would seem more vulnerable. And I think that's what people love about when the good girl, vulnerable, doesn't deserve this type of person is forced to stand up and kick some serious butt.
And that bothered me in Part 7 and 8. Didn't bother me in 6 because of Tommy Jarvis. And it didn't even bother me in Part 9 with John D. LeMay, you know, that didn't bother me. But it did bother me in Part 7 and 8. I found it so unnecessary. Nothing against those Kevin Blair or Scott Reeves, you know, got nothing against them. But they got in the road for me at the end of those movies.
They really kind of should have been just another victim because, there's not a lot of survivor guys normally. But, I know exactly what you're saying. I think that I loved about Tina was that she was so powerful and everything, but they could have made her just a little bit more of a victim, I guess. I think she was more of a victim to her doctor's betrayal in that movie, really the Jason. And I thought that was a great element, too, because, you know, if someone, if you were seeing a psychiatrist, and this psychiatrist was very powerful and had very powerful friends, and if he was a jerk and didn't like what you say, he could have you committed. Or something, you know. And then he was, of course, rather shady, making her, he knew it was up when she didn't.
Well, I like the fact that there was Dr. Cruz and then there was the professor in Jason Takes Manhattan. I thought that it was nice to see two characters like that in those movies that you don't see all the time.
Yes. And I love it when, like, the guys that you hate most, like, lasts, you know, a good 3/4 of the movie before you get that satisfying, I finally got that jerk, you know? Like when Jason turned her uncle upside down and shoved his head in the barrel. We were all waiting for that.
But I was kind of, like I said, there was two males there, I think, at the end that to me, they're a smudge on the movie. And again, you know, nothing against the actors. It's just it wasn't necessary. I would have just preferred to see a final girl versus Jason there, you know?
Absolutely. And when I complain about a character, I never, and it's good that you say not the actor. I sometimes I forget to say that because when I complain about a character, I'm not complaining about the actor or the portrayal of the character. I'm complaining about the character. My most hated character in the entire Friday the 13th franchise.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, it was in 4 or 5, but it's just two random guys in leather jackets that showed up and their car broke down. And you remember one got the flare in the mouth.
I interviewed one of them.
The goofy little.
I interviewed him. Yes, Corey Parker.
Who does that, dude?
You know,
sits there, rat-a-tat-a-tat-too, a 50s Grease, just so random and out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God, those were the worst characters. I don't mind the banana-eating hitchhiker. I don't mind any of that, but the greaser guy, man, with his rat-a-tat-a-tat-tat-too, it blew me away because nobody does that. Literally nobody.
You know what? I had Corey Parker on the show, and he was talking about. I guess he ad-libbed a lot of that stuff, and he and the other actor were actually friends, so it was an interesting connection there. But
I could see it. I could see how it could happen, and I could see where, you get a shot to do something real quick, and you ad-lib something, and then you're like, oh my God, I wish I could go back and change that, but nope, It's already out there. It's it was just that was that particular character.
I don't know. He didn't bother me, but those two males at the end of 7 and 8, I had an issue with. I just felt they were in the road. I could deal with the greasers.
Right.
I think.
Why are you still here? Kind of thing. And,
Yeah. No, but
now that makes me wonder if they were just trying something like, hey man, it's always just the girl that lives at the end. Maybe they're trying to change something up or something.
Well, you know what? It worked in Jason Lives, and it worked in Jason Goes to Hell. I had no issue with the male heroes in those two movies.
Right.
But you look at Tommy Jarvis and Stephen, John D. LeMay there. You look at them, there's a big difference between those two and Kevin Blair and Scott Reeves. Big difference.
Right. Like Tommy was like the hero.
Yep.
These other guys were just kind of off to the side as just some piece to look at or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I remember one point in part 7, Jason grabs Kevin Blair by the arm and flings him against the wall, knocks him out, and I'm like, I'm like, you know what? It's like the poor bitchy girl got a hatchet in the head and thrown behind a television. I'm like, and this guy we got to continue to put up with because he's eye candy to the female. I'm sorry, but give it up.
I totally hear that, dude. I absolutely hear that. That was hilarious. Yeah, it's like, the innocent girl getting chopped in half, and this douchebag, it just gets pushed against the wall, passes out, and then he moves on.
Yeah. But I got some questions about the timeline I'm going to bring up to you. Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm going to say, this is probably something you'll agree with me with. When Jason drowns and two people and the counselors are making love, I'm going to assume that the two counselors that were killed in 58 were the two guilty of not watching him.
That would make...
It would make sense because they're the only two killed at that scenery.
Exactly. And she would have killed the rest of the counselors unless, and it's a big unless those were the only two that made out in 1958. And I find that to be a little, I doubt that.
Well,
so yeah, I could go with that those were the actual two that had been in charge of watching him that night.
Yep. And of course, we know about the fires and the bad water. So Pamela's been up to things in between 58
and keep that thing shut down.
Yep. Now, other things about part 1 I want to bring up. Crazy Ralph. Do you think there's any form of tie-in with him somehow?
As far as Ralph and I'm concerned, I don't.
Okay.
I think personally that Ralph was just an old crazy guy from the town. He knew about the murders in 58, and just because of that, I mean, we're talking 58 to 80. There's several years there, so he had just been peddling the murder legend of the 2 and 58 the whole time. You're doomed if you go there. You're doomed if you go there. He's been telling people that even, the whole time, and up until someone finally went there.
Any theories about Steve Christie, or none?
Well, Steve Christie, I was thinking about that a little bit, and so obviously Pamela had been a cook for a long time. Now the Christies bought the camp from the previous owners, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So she did know the Christies a little bit, but I don't think that. I think Steve Christie was just an innocent victim who was trying to put together a camp and get everything together. And he was a little creepy with his relationship with Alice, but
Yep.
I think he was just a project or a product of the environment.
Let's talk about that conversation between Steve Christie and Alice when he's looking at her art and whatnot, and she says, she might have to go back to California to straighten something out. You have any theories about anything there?
Well, I think that Steve Christie, Alice had obviously been there at least the summer before. And I believe that Steve Christie was older than her, obviously.
Yep.
And I think that he seduced her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that after seducing her at the camp, when she went home and then came back, I think that she wasn't sure how she felt about that. She feels like she may have been seduced, but she kind of likes him too, and she's not sure if she actually likes him or if she likes him because he had seduced her, and that's why she acts kind of weird as he's like, hey, that thing we were doing. And then I think she was more like, well, is this going to be a relationship or what? I'm not just your thing, and I'm not really sure about what happened was even right. I mean, you're the older guy, you're blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I think that she definitely had reservations. She had messed around with him and then got second thoughts. Wasn't sure if she was doing the right thing or not. And
there's hints of stuff with Bill, too.
Yeah, I think she actually liked Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Bill would be more her age.
Mm-hmm.
And again, she had been seduced by Steve, and like when she came back, I think he expected for another summer of fun with the young girl, but she was like, no, that was a thing, and maybe she even felt bad about getting kind of like tricked into it, or you know what I mean.
Okay.
And so then she was there, and she actually liked Bill, and I think maybe that was part of her reservation as well with Steve Christie, like, I'm, without saying it, I don't want to do this anymore. You're not my age. I actually like this guy that's my age. Just if there was a chance there or something that maybe she thought he was attractive or whatever.
Okay.
And Bill and her would have made a much better pair than Steve Christie and her. That was just a bit of a creepy thing, and frankly, his mustache that that kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Well, Bill seemed to be a lot politer with her, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, they were in the same age group,
mm-hmm.
or age range, I guess. And I got the impression that Steve Christie was quite a few years older than Alice.
Yeah.
And he had clearly talked her into or seduced her into having sex or whatever the last is. Some sort of romance the year before.
Okay.
You could tell she wasn't sure about whether or not she had done the right thing with that, and whether or not she really liked him that way. I mean, even some girls normally, like, they may spend a summer somewhere with their family and find a new little boyfriend and date him for, the 3 months they're in this area, and then when she goes home and stuff, it was like, oh, okay, I had the little thing that summer, but not like, oh, I can't wait to see this guy again. I want to call this guy again, or that kind of thing. Who knows?
Do you think
that's just the kind of the feeling I get? She was a little bit creeped out by what she had done.
And I almost wonder too,
sure
when she says I gotta go back to California to straighten something out. I wonder if she had somebody back there.
Yeah, like she was going to go and say, well, no, I have to break this off with my boyfriend before I can do anything else with you.
Mm.
That could be. Or it could be something to do with her mother.
Ah.
Because when she's talking on the telephone in part 2...
Oh,
like,
that's
Mom,
right. Mm-hmm.
Mom, geez, Mom, you're always up in my business. So maybe she had to go back to California, and it was something to do with her mom that was bugging her on something and something. Maybe her mom didn't even want her to be at camp this year because she should have been at home doing this other thing, or, but I would attribute that maybe to her mom.
Okay.
Because her mom seemed, and it just by the phone call seemed to be, if not overcaring, overbearing.
By the way, I sent the Alice in Phonerland to Adrienne King. I didn't hear back, but I sent it to her, and I thought that was funny, especially when you inserted Cheech Marin from Up in Smoke. But I did send...
telephone and say hello to her on the other end, and it's like, what? He's like, oh, puto gamata, or whatever he says.
But I loved Jason and the Hendersons, your mashup of Jason and Harry and Henderson. Yeah. I sent that to Debbie Sue Voorhees, Adrienne King, and I sent it to Adam Marcus, and I think the only one that responded was Adam Marcus. Thought it was hilarious. Yeah.
Have you seen Jocelyn?
Yes, I saw that too. Yep.
Yeah, I just started recently in the last, 6-8 months. I started doing a lot of mashups, and I'm just finding that they're so much fun. I got
Meatballs the 13th.
Yeah. So what I did with Meatballs the 13th is every single Friday the 13th movie is represented in there.
Okay.
Whether it be a single sound or a scene, all of the movies, and I did it on purpose. There's a movie from I want to say 1 through 9, maybe even 10. No, it is 10. It is 10 because at the very ending they see the little star come down,
yeah,
or the little meteor, whatever, shooting star. But yes, I did the 1 through 10 there. So some of the music, each little scene is from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I was doing that to myself to try to, challenge myself to be able to use at least a scene from every movie. And then it went so well with the Bill Murray sitting around telling the scary campfire, and then Paul,
Yep.
It was great. It just went together really good.
I think you did a great job on these.
Oh, thank you. I just editing's one of the most fun things for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was recently thinking about doing the, we were discussing the Necronomicon and Jason getting struck by lightning in part 6 after Tommy stabs him with the thing.
Okay.
I was thinking about doing a little mashup of that, having maybe showing Tommy in his truck driving with Horseshack, and then maybe showing Ash and those guys driving up to the thing, and then having them play the tape. And then, as the voice of the tape with the incantations are speaking, I would switch scenes but carry the audio over that, showing Jason get struck by the lightning and everything at the same time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have some other questions too regarding. By the way, going back to Horseshack, I love that line. Can we stop this? My heart can't take it anymore. Of course, his heart really doesn't take it anymore. the little subtle Tom McLaughlin joke in there. But anyway, right. Part 2 comes along. And, of course, you got your 5 years. And I loved how... I agree with you. I think Part 2 should be Elias, And, of course, it would make sense he would find Alice. And even Adrienne King has said, how would he know where she lives, and when I had her on.
Another thing I find that I really like about that scenario is it's a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
You had Pamela murder everybody in 1, Elias in part 2, and then Jason in 3 and 4 until he was killed, Roy in 5 because he was the father of Jason biologically, and then, of course, Jason risen from the dead in 6 on.
Well, what I find interesting, too, is that, yeah. Oh, gee, I just lost my train of thought, but...
Happens all the time.
But anyway, okay, we have, this is something we both talked about, too, of course. This camp gets opened up 5 years later. And, okay, there's always this thing with the people talk about the disappearance of Paul. What happened to Paul? What happened to Paul? I always joked with people. I always said, well, when he came through the window, Paul saw a chance to get away. Because after all, Jenny is always late. She can't handle her liquor.
Yep.
But really, in reality, I always assumed that when Abel, the kind of the crazy Ralph takeover, is holding the eyeball, he always mentioned other parts of the body, and I'm assuming that eyeball belongs to Paul. And he also states that he gave this to me. He wanted me to warn you. Jason would not have done that. Maybe Elias.
No. Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So back me up here a little bit here. I just lost my train of thought.
We're talking about Paul Holt.
Okay. So no, I agree. So at the end of part 2, and again, I was under the understanding that particular one was not a dream sequence, but yes, I would say that when he crashed through the window and everything, whatever happened, perhaps Ginny was knocked unconscious right away, and Paul fought Elias, and Elias killed him and dragged him off in the woods, and because at this point, Elias is mortally wounded, and which makes him angry as well. So he put every last ounce of everything he had into destroying Paul. That's why there was body parts everywhere. Instead of hacking off a head or hacking him in half or stabbing him, whatever, he hacked this guy up into little pieces. There was a little anger in there when that happened. And, so that would make a lot of sense to where, the eyeball comes in, and whether or not that guy was just nutty and didn't actually talk to anybody, it would make more sense that Elias, who was able to speak rather well before he had his brains bashed in by her, he can still speak a little bit, and he has flashes of intelligence and then flashes of non-intelligence and just rage. TBI, traumatic brain injuries, cause frustration and massive rage. So, I could see him. He hacked Paul up, and then, however, he ran across the old fellow there. He probably he was mortally wounded. He had taken the machete already through the shoulder, hacked Paul to death, and was probably on his way back to wherever with a few body parts. And he gave him that and told him whatever. And the only reason at all why he spoke or gave any form of warning or anything at all is because he was on his last breath and he was going off to die in the woods. And his son was somewhere, unbeknownst to him, but he knew he was around. And he didn't have him to say anything to because he was dying, and he just had to tell the last person that he saw whatever he could.
Yeah, basically stay away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying that Harold and Edna would have been, the store owners would have been the first victims of Jason.
Yes. Harold would be his very first victim, still dressed exactly in the clothes that Chris Higgins had been attacked in years before.
By the way, do you notice with Harold, and you notice with Demon in Part 5, I don't get this, cutaway or something with the camera. Do these people generally have to pull their pants out without wiping their ass? Did you notice that?
It's those damn enchiladas, man. All the life in the world ain't gonna help. No, that's really funny in Part 3, like Harold, and when he's like, he's got a shit so bad, and he goes there and he pulls up his pants, and you're like, well, that's not sanitary, buddy.
Like cutaway.
That's like one of the first things you notice because that's the first thing you do before you stand up. But Demon. I still to this day I want to start an enchilada company. It's going to be Demon's Enchiladas. Demon's Damn Enchiladas.
Yeah. Or Ethel's Slop.
Right.
Yeah, but and then Part 3, now of course the ending of Part 3 kind of takes a little bit of a steal from the original. Now, would you say this is a dream sequence? And even if it was, why would Dana Kimmel's Chris Egan know anything about Mrs. Voorhees? Because obviously it's Mrs. Voorhees coming out of the lake at the end of the Part 3.
So my theory on that is that, yes, it was a dream sequence. Jason kicking out the door and coming out, and then her being attacked, obviously, by Pamela. It's a dream sequence for a couple of reasons. One, Pamela has her head. And I believe that what had happened here is that, Chris was attacked years before by the guy. She knows that there's been murders on the other side of the lake and that, whatever. And she's kind of creeped out by this guy. And, losing my train of thought. Where were we at?
Yeah, we're talking about Mrs. Voorhees coming out of the lake.
Oh, yes. Okay, so with all of the legends and everything that she had heard, this dream sequence, she manifested what she thought through the legends that Pamela Voorhees would look like. Now, this ties in with her in the back of the police car. So this, Chris Higgins had been bothered by, ever since the attack by the guy in the woods in the very beginning. She, in the entire part 3, that's her whole problem. It's not over that yet at all. And so she's already on edge and starting to lose it. By the time she had stabbed Jason in the knee or whatever, ran out, and then had this big hallucination, she was really losing it. And then when she ended up in the back of the police car, she straight up cracked up.
Yeah.
She fully was able to lose it because she was safe now. And so it was just a part of her losing it, and loose bits of her hearing about the mom and the lake, and so she had the thoughts in the where she'd heard about the boy in the lake, and then she'd also heard about the mother that killed the boy in the lake, and in her head somehow she kind of mixed it up, so it was the mother who killed in the lake. She was almost Pamela in that vision was almost a cross between Pamela and Jason.
Okay.
So she had taken this legend that she'd known a little bit about, and while she's starting to lose it, it came together in its own way, and it basically combined the legend of Jason and the legend of Pamela into one, and that's what manifested in her head as to what she pictured it would look like.
Okay. I always said, my favorite, of course, was Traci Savage in 3. And I loved the character of Debbie. She seemed to be the only one that didn't come down on Shelley. In fact, she seems to understand Shelley. You see that moment where she and Chris are walking, and Dana Campbell is going off on him, and she's saying, well, he doesn't realize blah, blah, blah. And I always liked Debbie, that and the fact I find Traci Savage very attractive. But I often wondered what it would have been like if Debbie was the heroine, because she had such a cool demeanor.
She did.
Yeah.
She really did. And I think that it really threw people off because on the way in there, speaking of 3D, when I forget her boyfriend's name, but hands the joint in 3D in the van before Chili and Chuck eating everything they can when the cops are coming.
Yep.
That was a great scene too. I love those characters. Our little Cheech and Chong. But,
yeah.
Where was I going with that? I forget.
But the joint and Debbie.
Oh, Debbie. Yeah. So she would have been great as the final girl because she was pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I think that they kind of
forgot about it.
Well, in the van. When they're doing the joint thing, we all kind of learn. He goes to hand her the joint. She's like, "No, I'm pregnant."
Yeah. So
that almost, in essence, leads us all to believe she's going to be the final girl. There's no way the pregnant girl who's a good girl, not smoking pot, is going to get killed. Mm-hmm. And boom. I'm wondering if that was done on purpose as a surprise to make it look like this girl who is like the perfect. She was funny, friendly, pregnant, didn't do dope. Mm-hmm. She didn't have sex, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
yep.
I'm wondering if that was just kind of one of those wrenches they try to throw at. It's like, oh, well, she's not going to get killed because she's pregnant.
I don't know.
You can't do that.
I don't know. I would have nothing against Dana Campbell, but I don't know. I had I wrote that, I would have given the final girl role to Debbie.
Sure.
I think I would have went that route. I don't know. I don't know. She just felt like the one to hang out with, not just because she was the most sexually active. It just. She just seemed to have the cool demeanor.
She had a really, her character was, while she was frisky with her boyfriend, she was actually a really good girl. And again, like when you're in a van full of people smoking pot, and I'm not against pot in any way, and I know, I don't think it's that harmful for you, but when you're pregnant, you shouldn't be doing any of that business.
Exactly.
And so I thought it was a good message, for one, no thank you, I'm pregnant, because, in all these movies, all these horror movies, you got all the girls are having sex, but no one ever talks about the consequences. Well, this girl's kind of showing it a little bit like, hey, no, I can't party anymore. I'm pregnant, So I don't know if whether or not Jason would have known that and maybe killed her because she had sex, but I think she just had hammock sex.
I gotta say too,
she was a nice character for sure.
I love the inclusion of the gang in it too. I thought it was a nice addition to them.
Fox and
Allie and Local, yep.
No, I absolutely loved that. I loved the store scene with Shelley.
And it added something to the Shelley and Vera too.
Yeah, it did. Kind of like how they were. He liked her. She didn't really like him, but she also felt kind of bad, so she took him to the store. And then this is something that almost forced them to join forces. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really liked the Ali character. Well, I liked them all, but the fact that Ali came in as a bad guy.
Yep.
And ended up almost being a good guy.
Yep.
Fighting Jason. And I did like, too, how, in the store they were a bunch of biker jerks, but when they kind of were together, that was like, they're not that bad of people, But, yeah, I thought it was one of those, instead of just like the rat-a-tat-a-tat-tooey guy, it's all of a sudden you got this car on the side of the road. This wasn't all of a sudden you have a biker gang. It was like we're at the store, we met them, we had an interaction, ran over their bikes, and that whole thing was really cool, too, because you had Shelley, who was the goober, who really liked the girl, who didn't really care for him, but he had a chance, and he took it, and he stood up and was a hero, or a man. He ran over all their stuff, and I was like, all right, and he was even surprised himself that he was able to do that. And then I think at some point she garnered a little respect for him. So when they got back, she's like, got out of the car. She's like, don't worry about it. Shelley took care of it. So I think at that point they were at least becoming friends. Didn't work out too well for either of them after that, but
he gets
we had a start maybe.
He gets the mask from him, and she becomes the first victim while he's wearing the mask.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Ironically.
Yep. Now, the final chapter. I think the final chapter to me is one of the best of the franchise. Just the look of the film. It's so. I think, to me, one of the scariest entries, if not the scariest entry for me. Like, even when they're going in the house and you hear the flicking of the film reel and stuff, everything in the Manfredini music, it's so creepy. And the dog knows something's up, and it runs up the stairs and goes right out the window, the animal instinct, Stuff like that was so creepy. And I think the final chapter, I think they really went all out. Like the shadows with the pitchfork goes in the person's back, but you don't see it. You see the shadow of it. Stuff like that was great.
Yeah, I liked it. I speaking of the dog scene, I really find that scene to be amazing as well, because if you think about, animals, they say, if you've got a dog and your dog like growls or barks at a certain person, oftentimes they know that person better than you do. You know what I mean? And for a dog to literally just hurl itself through a window, I would rather die or whatever's beyond this than be in here with what I know is terribly evil. You know what I mean? That is definitely creepy.
Yeah, because it didn't go out the door. It just ran up the stairs. Like there was something up there.
Yeah. Dogs know, that they do. They know.
And there is something with them. You mentioned to me before something about animals there. Number one, I had an issue with part one when I found out they actually killed a snake in that cat. I'm really kind of pissed that they stooped that low. That's Cannibal Holocaust territory.
So, and This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is right before, and this is why they made the rule. No animals were harmed during this film, because no animal should be have its life ended for you and I to giggle. I mean, nowadays, it would have been CGI or something. Back then, I mean, I won't really blame them, because it's the way you did it, more or less, and people are like, oh, snakes, oh, that's disgusting, great white sharks, oh, gross, and I happen to think both are majestic creatures, or, everything deserves to live, to a certain extent, but, that, just like Cannibal Holocaust, when I saw that, the deaths of the people did not bother me, but it was the muskrat and the turtle getting his head cut off and stuff. And I'm like, man, what are you doing?
Like, it's despicable.
And it bothered me, because we all escape, and we all, like someone could say, oh, you're a sicko because you like these Friday the 13th movies. No, this is literally my escape from a world full of real horrors and politics, and everybody's arguing every day, and this and that, and this is a fun way to see things happen that aren't real. And you see, I know they're not real, and that's why they're fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of dead animals in these movies. Of course, you got the what we thought was Muffin in part 2, and of course the dead rabbit on the road in part 3.
Oh yeah. Well, I want to do a video just of the animals of Friday the 13th, but not just ones that were killed. I mean, you got the snake.
Yeah.
And I was going to do like I don't know, top 10 or top 13 animals. The number one animal would be the loon, or whatever.
The loon.
The bird sound that we always hear throughout all of the Friday the 13th. That's definitely the number one animal in the Friday the 13th series. But then you have the dogs. You've got that you were just talking about, went through the window. You got Muffin. You've got snakes and rats and bunnies and
Toby.
I find things like this interesting. It's like, hey, how many animals were in Friday the 13th? Well, damn it, now I want to know. Okay, there we go. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I made one.
Let's not forget Toby in part 8.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Appears right there.
And a lot of little ones like that you don't even notice. Like, just like, well, there's a scene, maybe a cat walks by in the background or something that isn't actually part of the movie.
Okay.
I like to find all those little tiny details. Another thing I was thinking about, too, is you have, while I'm going on the theory of continuity, there could be a lot more backstory on Tina's dad.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ties in anywhere or anything, but it's something I'm certainly considering.
Sure.
I mean, the lake is the obvious tie to everything, and the geographical location, but like with the Roy being the father of Jason and being the father of Joey, I like the fact that it makes him less random. It's not just some ambulance guy whose kid got killed, so he killed everybody exactly as this guy. Why would he choose this guy? Well, it's because he's been there for all the murders. He knows the guy. He knows what he wears. He knows how he kills. He knows everything about him. So, and he knows that it's his son, and that's why he chose to do it that way. I mean, of course, like I said, I'm making this up as like, no graphic novels or anything, just out of the movies, but trying to fill in the blanks to make the continuity go or work.
Well, we know the final chapter is where Jason officially dies. And of course, you see Pamela's headstone. It says 1979, and everybody's going with 1980. What is your take on that?
Well, I think it's just very simple that Friday the 13th happened in 1979. We just didn't see it till 80. So,
okay,
you know what I mean? It was like we saw it a year after it happened.
Okay,
basically.
Well, I found the final chapter had some of the best characters. That and Jason Lives, I think, had some of the best, most interesting characters to watch. Of course, I love Axel, the morgue. I get a kick out of him. He did Police Academy the same year.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
He's the husband that...
One of my favorite all-time characters in the entire franchise. The franchise happens to be in Part 9, and it's Creighton Duke.
Yep.
I thought this guy was... I mean, this is another thing that I loved about... There's a lot, a lot of people bag on 9, and there's some things in there I'm like, I didn't really care too much for the body swap, but there were so many things in this movie that I absolutely loved it equaled out as a good movie. And Creighton Duke and his whole, do you want to know my story?
Sure.
Stick your fingers through the bars. Let me break all your fingers, then I'll tell you. You know, I mean, this guy, Creighton Duke, is one character from the Friday the 13th franchise, and in my opinion, the number one character eligible for his own spinoff.
You might get it.
He could be like a Van Helsing type of guy, going after Jason, then going after Freddy, then going after... I mean, Creighton Duke is such an ass.
Adam Marcus is actually ahead of you on that.
Really?
Yeah, but because Creighton Duke is owned by New Line, he can't use Creighton Duke, but he's going to... I think he wants to incorporate a Creighton Duke type character and even use Stephen Williams if possible, you know. But
so what, as like a Van Helsing?
Something of that, yeah, something like a guy that hunts down these.
It would be really cool if they could use the same actor and just not
his
name.
Well, I think that's what Adam has in mind, because he was on my show again this year. He's been on my show twice, and we were promoting Secret Santa, which is a movie I recommend you see.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
It's hilarious.
Really good.
It is. It's hilarious. I've got a copy of it home on Blu-ray. It's even better than Jason Goes to Hell, I think. But
awesome.
Yeah, but nonetheless, there's a backstory to Creighton Duke where his fiance, where they were out on the lake and his fiance was attacked by Jason.
Okay.
And he hauls her under the water. And this was mentioned in the Fangoria magazine, I believe, and I talked to Adam Marcus about it. And Adam had filmed a bunch of stuff that didn't get in the movie. But there is a backstory there where Jason attacked his fiance in a canoe or whatever with Creighton Duke, and that was what led Creighton Duke to go hunting him. And
that's what got his...
In 1960, this happened. So 3 years after Jason drowned. And of course, yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's a backstory about this, and Adam talks to...
I don't know. I don't know the details on legalities as far as movies are made, but like if he made a movie and literally had the same actor that played Creighton Duke with a black cowboy hat on and a black long coat, dressed exactly as Creighton Duke, but they never mentioned his name ever.
Yeah.
Would they still be infringing on that character? You know what I mean? Probably, but
I don't know.
I would love to see him get a character. I like that actor. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that he was a freaking sicko. Yeah, I'll tell you what you want, but for my pleasure, I want to break your fingers. You know? I mean, that guy to me really made 9. And I want to see a lot more of him. I would like to have seen him, hunt Jason for another 2 or 3 movies and then have some sort of a final showdown.
Well, my interview with Adam Marcus is going to be uploaded on YouTube next month. And
cool.
He talks about all of this. So, yeah, he might be ahead of you on that. But because of legalities, he might not be able to use Creighton Duke. But I think he's interested to use Stephen Williams in doing a Creighton Duke type character.
That would be amazing. I always thought that Adam got a bad rap for 9. I mean, people hated this movie. And like I said, I had some problems with it, and there are other parts that I loved. But the one problem I did not have with it ever was directing.
Yeah, I thought it was way better than 10, I tell you that.
Oh my God! Without question, no. I was thrown off at first with the body changing because I came there to see Jason freaking Voorhees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or at least the hockey mask killing everybody. That threw me off for a little bit, but no. Any of the complaints certainly wouldn't be by the director or anything. It was done by Aaron Gray.
Yeah.
And I love that. Oh my God! The lady in the diner, the cook.
Oh yeah.
Face and oh my God, and her little husband. I forget that guy's name, but I love
Leslie
him.
Jordan. Yeah.
Oh, he's great and everything. And they made such a great character. She was kind of like the larger, domineering boss, and he was like the cool little but I'll kick your butt if you mess with my woman.
Yeah.
And, that was a great set of characters. You add in the baby, nobody protect the baby,
Yep.
Nobody wants to see a baby killed, so that makes it raises the stakes, I guess you could say.
Yep.
But
So-
yeah, Creighton Duke would be a fantastic spinoff.
Well, we might get it. We'll see what Adam Marcus cooks up, because he's very open to talking to fans, and whatnot. So it just might happen.
I wonder if okay, so the you got like what is it, Paramount and New Line,
Mm-hmm.
the two that are in the arguments right now, and so this could be God only knows how long. But again, I don't know about the legalities, but I wonder if you can't, or if Adam couldn't get the rights to do a Friday the 13th movie, what would be the difference on getting the rights for a single character from the movies?
I don't know. But I'm going to tell you one thing. Originally, Adam wanted to bring Tom Matthews into Jason Goes to Hell as Tommy, but because Tommy Jarvis was owned by Paramount, he couldn't do it.
Oh.
So you see, Adam Marcus had a lot of plans. Yep.
That would have been really cool.
Yep. He had a lot of ideas. Adam Marcus, yes, takes a bad rap, but Adam Marcus is not at fault.
I agree with that 100%. Like I said, it wasn't the directing, but correct me if I'm wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
Was this Adam Marcus's his directorial debut?
I think so. He might have did a short film or something before that, but
I think this would be his first theatrical release, his directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
And that'd be a dream for just about everybody.
Yeah.
And like I said, some of the story was a little odd, but the directing was great. I liked the movie. There's several things I just absolutely loved about the movie. Like, for instance, the medical examiner biting the heart.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yep.
I mean, that is messed up.
Yep.
And then having Kane sitting out there as one of the guards.
Yeah.
Was also really cool. I love these little little Easter egg kind of things.
Speaking of guards, I should have brought this up before, but did you know Officer Dorff was in 2 scenes in part 1?
So he played something other than the police officer?
He was a police officer, and he's also apparently one of the officers on the beach whenever they're calling out Alice.
Oh, okay. So at the end, okay.
Yeah.
So he was still playing Dorff, but he was behind the dark-haired cop with the hat on.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to have to relook at that.
Yeah, I don't know where I found that out, but I came across that somewhere, so I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that because I liked Officer Dorff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that one thing that I noticed from the very, very beginning, first time I ever saw it, was it was a little odd when he turned his motorcycle around. I can't tell you what was odd about it, but it was just a little odd.
Yeah.
And come to find out years and years and years and years later, the guy didn't ride a motorcycle at all.
Yeah, no, we didn't.
He didn't know what the hell he was doing at all. And now that I look at it, it's like, okay, that explains it. He's doing the motorcycle thing, but as a guy that really isn't a regular rider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now,
I like his character.
Now, timeline-wise, love the characters in the final chapter, but Jason is killed, and of course there's a deleted dream sequence. I actually liked. Did you see the deleted dream sequence? Because I thought it was actually quite effective, where Kimberly Beck finds her mom.
In the tub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually kind of liked that.
I'm not sure why they cut that out, because really, I mean, other than that deleted scene, we don't know that the mom actually died, right?
Yeah. Because I gotta say, I really like that sequence, and the cast was great in it. Like, the characters I thought were a little more rounded. You mentioned Judy Aronson, Crispin Glover, and Lawrence Monoson were a hoot. You had the twins.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I could have watched a movie just based on Crispin Glover and Lawrence Monoson going back and forth.
Well, then you throw in Corey.
Yep. Corey Feldman.
I mean, we're talking that the height of Goonies, Stand by Me. I love him as a child actor. I don't know. I haven't really seen him do a whole bunch as an adult yet, but I know he's working on a bunch of different movies. But
he's going to be in 13 Fanboy.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm excited about that. He
Yeah.
was such an iconic character and such a likable kid, and
He did
I'm sorry
Gremlins
that
the
bad
same
things
year
may have
too.
happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah, he got kind of
Hollywood.
messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the world can be a messed up place.
I know Ted White had told some stories of dealing with them, but he did do Gremlins the same year, so he had a couple of hits in there.
Yeah. No, I really like. I really like him. I think he was a great actor, iconic. He hasn't. I know he's doing some stuff now, maybe not as big, but he's talked about a lot of his bad things and problems in Hollywood. And
Yeah.
I've seen Ted White's interviews where Corey was kind of a little turd.
Yep.
But and you think instantly, kind of like what a little jerk kid. But then, was he being molested at the time? And kids lash out. I mean, there's a lot to it nobody knows, and we may never know. But
Yeah.
I always enjoyed Corey Feldman's movies. I thought that he did a great job as each character from whatever he did that he did. Goonies is one of my favorite movies filmed here in my home state of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet literally to visit the Goonies house a couple hours away from me, but I always thought it was a fantastic movie, and I always liked Corey. But I thought it was terrible when I started finding out what can go on,
Yeah.
in Hollywood and that kind of thing. And it was just like, wow, because you just love these kids, and then you're like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
And you're. I wouldn't say your dreams are crushed, but you're like, wow, my favorite little kid, now that something really bad probably happened to this kid, and that's like, well, that's messed up.
How much a timeline gap is between part 4 and 5?
4 and 5, that's interesting. I hadn't actually thought a whole bunch about that, but if I had to guess,
You don't hear anything about Trish. Do you have any theories? Do you think she just got her life back together and he didn't, or what?
That is interesting because I believe Chris from Part 3 is in an asylum somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say Trish seems to me more like a survivor. Like she would be writing a book and going around selling her book and being an inspiration to young girls who are attacked and that kind of thing. I could really see her being that type of character where I am a survivor and writes a big book about it, becomes a bestseller, and maybe influences some other young ladies.
Yeah. But I don't know whether he's a teenager in. Supposed to be a teenager in when he's hauled to the halfway house in the ambulance or whatever. I don't know. So I don't. That's one area where the timeline kind of gets a little screwed up.
Okay, so which one was in the ambulance?
Part 5, A New Beginning, when Tommy Jarvis.
Tommy, yes, okay.
Yep.
What was that actor's name that played Tommy?
John Shepherd. Nothing against John Shepherd, but I think Tom Matthews just brought a much more of a personality to the character.
Well, I liked John Shepherd. I thought he was a real serious. He did a really good job. But Tom Matthews, for me, the reason why I liked him too is because I had also just seen him in Return of the Living Dead, and he has a very likable personality. He has an innocence about him, but also, I don't know. He just his character. I really like Tom Matthews' character as Tommy. There's just something about it. He's a little bit of a smartass, a little bit funny, a little bit tough, a little bit scared. As Shepard's character was 100% different. He was having internal issues daily, could barely function because of the the flashbacks and everything. And then he was when it came time, he was an angry ass kicker. who would mess you up. And I think they were leading towards passing the torch from Jason to Tommy, and I believe that it would have been Tommy from here on out, and including the little ending there.
Do you think he killed Pam Roberts?
I think it was another dream sequence.
Oh, do you?
Something just tells me it is. Otherwise, I mean, he could have, and then just went to, off to prison or some insane asylum for the rest of his life after Jason drove him to it. But I think...
Well, isn't that her truck at the beginning of Jason Lives?
That Tommy's driving? Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. I need to take a look at that again, because that could change everything. But if it's not the same truck, I would say it was a dream sequence. But if it was the same truck, then it wouldn't make any sense, because Tom Matthews would have just murdered the girl and then picked up Horseshack to go kill Jason. So I don't think he killed her. I think that was a dream sequence by her at the end, a little weird flash or whatever. Because, like I said, Tom Matthews, the way his character is in Part 6, has wouldn't relate at all to someone who just murdered a girl. He had cracked up, but you know what I mean. I think he got some help and kind of sort of started to work his stuff back out until he realized that the only way he was going to finish his therapy and to get over this completely is to go and open up Jason's grave and see his body for himself and destroy it. And then he took one of his friends with him from the loony bin, and a guy who believed his story, one of the very few that believed his story, and went to do that. And then it actually worked because of the Necronomicon. And that's what I think, though. But if you think about it, at the end of 5, if he had murdered her, he wouldn't be cruising around looking to go kill Jason and having a girlfriend and everything else in there. So I am just literally chalking that up as the frequently used dream sequence.
Okay. Yeah. Part 5, of course, was directed by Danny Steinman, whom I gotta say, I think he, no offense to him, but I think he was one of the worst directors of the series. I mean, one scene that always bothered me, there's a couple of scenes that bothered me in this movie. One, you got Reggie the Reckless going up the stairs, and he comes to this room, it's dark, and then the lightning flashes, he sees the bodies. Okay, I'm fine with that. He backs up, and there's Pam. Pam goes in there, and not until the light flashes she sees anything. I'm like, gee, the light just happened to flash, And then there's another sequence that just annoys me in that movie. And I remember interviewing Melanie Kinnaman, and even she agreed on this. She's running from Roy, and she, takes a flop in the mud puddle there, and she's trying to get up. Finally, he gets to her. Now, if I had a shot that, I would have had him, put her down with his foot, raise the machete, then Reggie crashes out through on the tractor or whatever.
Right.
This one here, it's back and forth from the machete raising to her screaming, the machete back and forth. I'm like, for frig's sake, will you... That was one of the worst directed
absolutely.
scenes.
It could have been done in 2, her, and then the raging, and then boom.
Yeah, it was one of the worst directed scenes, I think, in the franchise, I think. And I gather from what from what I've heard, I guess he had a background in porn, and you can kind of tell from this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
And it's funny because...
Speaking of Reggie, man, I think he would have made another pretty good spin-off character that could have had his own, like another Tommy character.
Yeah. Yep, that might have been interesting, yep. But, I mean, and Jason Lives comes along, and no nudity at all in it. But Jason Lives was a whole different vehicle, a lot more fun. But again, I'm wondering, did you think Jason Lives happened right after Part 5, or where do you connect that timeline?
Well, I would definitely have to give it at least a couple of years.
Okay.
Jason had been fully buried. He obviously would have.
He obviously wasn't cremated from part 5.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So he was buried. They would have had to have had some sort of funeral arrangements. They would have had to have had some closure, media-wise, like, oh, this killer guy, he's done, he's gone, it's over, we found him. I mean, it would have been a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So then he's gone, he's dead, it's settled back down. And meanwhile, Tommy's in wherever Looney Bin he's in now. After all the murders happened there, obviously any of the survivors would have been transferred. And yeah, I think that's the way it went down.
Okay, so you know, when part 6 happens, there's so many funny moments. I do love the paintball scene. You know,
yeah, Bradley.
You know, I got a kick out of the humor that is in this movie, and
100% the triple beheading, the smiley face on the tree. Mm-hmm.
I interviewed Whitney Ryback, who played Roy in the movie, and I actually felt bad he got hacked up. Could you imagine if he had been the hero? Shows up at the end with his paintball.
Is he the jerk boss guy, or
no? He was the one with the glasses that they find later.
Yeah, the little nerd running around dropped his gun.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, I loved that character. That was a funny character too. He was that was good. The poor bumbling guy. The poor
tries to put the branch back on the tree.
Yeah.
Little things like that were so freaking funny.
I agree. What I loved about it the most is that it showed that this character, you know, we knew that these were business guys out on a retreat.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, I loved how it showed that, you know, he's like a cubicle nerd. He is out of his element.
Yep.
And he's trying to participate like everybody else, but he is definitely out of his element.
Mm-hmm. But this is the first and maybe only Friday the 13th movie that actually had kids at the camp. Yes,
the little girl that Jason looked at, and then she closed her eyes and prayed, and then...
I love that. He prayed. It's like the power of God.
I believe he was walking by, right? Sissy's body, headless, he was carrying when the girl saw him out the window, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I love it that he disappears when she says a prayer. I'm like, yes, God rules, you know?
Yeah, because everyone at that point is pooping their pants thinking, oh, Mike, you are not going to kill all these kids, are you?
Nope.
And, it ended up working out perfectly because they made it scary, but made him not kill the kids in a way that was corny. You know, it was like, hold on, I'm busy. I got to get these counselors. You know,
yeah.
He may have come back and killed them later or something, but he was preoccupied.
Yes. Now, and of course, you get the cool Alice Cooper music in it and stuff, too. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. But,
Teenage Frankenstein.
Yeah, and I'm back, the man behind the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had some great stuff in there. And, of course, then you have a disconnect again between Part 6 and Part 7. This always troubles me because they don't have Tommy back, although they do have telekinesis Tina. So you never really find out what happened with Tommy after that, you know. But
yeah, he kind of disappeared after he vanquished Jason to the bottom of the lake.
And I thought that was a really great climax, him in the canoe and the fire and the chain. And I actually thought that was a terrific climax.
I agree. It was like returning the prodigal son to where, you know, he's putting him back where he belongs. He should have drowned a long time ago, and now you're gonna. And then I liked how the transformation from the end of 6, where Tommy drowned him,
mm-hmm.
and how Tina trying so bad to bring her father back to life that she accidentally brings Jason back to life.
Yeah. And
I kind of liked that.
How much of the timeline thing, you know? It's like you got her on the dock, you know, as a little girl, and then she goes out in the boat, and then it's the timeline. And this is where you're an expert at. I'm interested to see what you come up with for this connection. Because, I mean,
Okay,
he's not even in the same, like, he's not at the camp, because this is not the camp. This is just a bunch of...
Right.
Yeah.
So what we are is we're at the lake still, somehow or another, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you're right. So if when she's young
Mm-hmm.
and she has the accident that accidentally kills her father, she is probably, what do you think, maybe 10 years old?
Yeah, something like that.
10, 11, 12, and then she's probably maybe 18.
Okay.
So a good 5-6 years went by since her father died before they returned. And, a 12-year-old girl versus an 18-year-old girl, there can be quite the transformation from, almost looking more adult. So she, well, I don't know how old Lara Park was literally when she filmed it, but, she's playing a teenager. So we'll put her at tops at 18, and if she was anywhere from 10 to 12, it's a max of 8 years.
Okay.
And then in part 7 versus part 6, you will notice subtle differences between Jason, and that is the rot in his suit. You now see his spine.
Oh, yeah.
You see his ribs. So he has spent a good 5, 6, 7, 8 years underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put, you've got after Tommy put him down.
Okay.
The young Tina could have happened within a year. It could have happened within 2 years. I mean, it could have been relatively soon when and I'm talking about her father, her accidentally killing her father.
Okay.
That could have happened within any time, right around there, or even possibly before Jason. But then, like I said, probably a maximum of maybe 8 years after that for her to return. Well, I would say 8 years after Tommy kills Jason. I don't know how long it was until she returned to the lake from being a kid, but again,
and I would dare say that due to the current or whatnot, I could dare say that maybe Jason the Chain and the Rock could have drifted down if the current was strong enough, because he's obviously not.
Have a little bit, but what we don't know here is the house that in part 4, the end of part 4.
Okay, yeah.
That house where, I'm sorry, excuse me, part 6.
Okay.
When Tommy puts the chain around Jason's neck and sinks him.
Okay.
We don't know where that house is, the one that the roof fell in and all that crap, in comparison to where Tina's vacation house was. That could have been directly across the lake. It could have been the next house over, like literally, because you'll have your lake house, and you'll have a bit of property that you own, and then the next guy who might be within yelling distance, might not be, but they're all pretty close. So I'm just assuming it's literally just a house over, because it's not very far from where that happened. We know that for sure because of when everything went down, the ranch that they were from Jason. We know that it wasn't very far from where Tommy sank Jason with the rock. So I'm just simply assuming that it's literally on the same side of the lake. It's just 1 or 2 houses down.
Okay. And again, what do you think the connection between 7 and 8 is in terms of timeline?
So that is very interesting. In the end, we lose Jason. So I guess the biggest thing would be there is why. After he is vanquished by Tina, why does he reappear? What brings him, back? Well, it was the Jaws 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the anchor on the electricity.
Okay.
So that zapped him again alive, exactly like part 6. It's the lightning, but this time it's the electricity. So I would look at Jason like Alexa. It's off, but it's never really off. Yeah. It would take something certain to turn it on. And that's what it was. I mean, he could have sat there and rotted a little more in the lake until something else either brought him to life or did not. But it was the electricity again, and then I believe that again will be not by luck. This wasn't some dumb luck. This is again, it has to do with the Necronomicon. It's tied in.
Okay.
It won't quite let him die.
Well, here's something that puzzles me. You got a scene where there's a car crash, and you got Renee, played by Jensen Daggett, going in this flashback where her uncle wants to teach her how to swim and pushes her as a young girl into the lake. Mm-hmm. And she has this vision. She has these visions all through the film of Jason. That is a little screwy, because if she's on this boat for this high school graduation and Jason was a boy, like there's tell me about this timeline. How you guys figure this one out?
Well, that is interesting, because you would think after the traumatic experience of her uncle throwing her off the boat that she'd never want to be on a boat again. As far as her flashbacks with Jason, I don't know. Again, see, even if it was a dream sequence, there has to be something behind it to give details of why it would be Jason she was dreaming of.
Yeah.
Now, this could be as simple as everyone knows the legend of the lake. Everybody.
Okay.
I mean, this lake has had so many murders, but it's over. It's done. Whoops. There was a few more. Oh, okay, now it's over and done. Well, whoops, a few more. Okay, now it's over and done. And so, in the back of her head, she could have, being out on the lake and afraid of swimming in general. But she also knows this is the same lake where that poor boy drowned, and then someone had a legend about that boy coming back to life, and how creepy would that be? So that made her even more afraid of the water than just swimming.
Yeah, he does bring that up to her, yeah.
When he threw her in there, her fear was more than swimming. It was more of the monster in the lake.
Okay.
That she didn't know that much about, but she had built up this fear in the back of her head that there was this monster in the lake that was going to get her. And, of course, she may have been using that to mask her fear of swimming or whatever, but that was actually more powerful fear-wise than the water itself, because that gave her some sort of psychological reason to be afraid of the water more than it just being water.
Okay. Now, how would you... I'm really going to push you on this one. How do you explain the end of Jason Takes Manhattan?
Okay. Oh, boy. My least favorite end of any movie ever. The whole, mommy, it really makes me want to claim this as a dream sequence, but it's not. Perhaps this is so when he like drowned in the tube, the pipe at the end there, and was like, "Oh, mommy," or whatever. Mm-hmm. That literally at the time in the theater, that made me mad.
Okay.
I didn't like, first of all, the makeup effects on Jason's face, because, in my opinion, 7 was the best unmasked-looking Jason of all of the films. It reminded me of like Big Ben from House.
Okay.
It was. I just loved it. I thought that was the best Jason. I liked the spine showing and all that. And then when they went to, it looked like a carved pumpkin, and he's like, "Mommy," and it was just, it made me mad. I'm like, no, that's not how, I mean, I got it. I got why it is, but, so what was the very last scene in that movie? What was the very last?
Him laying as a boy in the...
Yeah, the little kid again. So here's my thing. He did not physically turn into a little kid. He didn't. Okay. This could have been a dream sequence, but this could have been more like a Jason side of it. That's a very interesting one. I will definitely have to work on, because I come up with a new question each time, and then I am able to answer it. And I'm almost done, like, fixing the continuity altogether. So this is something I definitely want to put a little more thought into. All I can say right now is he didn't turn into a little boy and then just suddenly die because he's in the sewer of New York. Now that makes no sense. He's been killed 100,000 ways. So I don't know if this was a dream sequence by them, a dream sequence by him, or not a dream sequence at all. Perhaps, and only perhaps, when the surviving girl and her boyfriend went and told everyone how they survived this, that was how they told the story, because that's what they thought, or that's what they understood. It may not have happened that way. Just like when Paul was telling everyone at the camp about Jason Voorhees. He was literally describing all of Pamela's murders, but because the boy had died in the lake in 1950, whatever, the kids and kids and camps and legends and all that kind of shit, they made a legend of the boy in the lake. And so the whole time it was the legend of the boy in the lake, but no one really knew it was actually Pamela, because anybody who looked into it in part 2 could have found out that it was actually the mother that killed people, but they weren't all into that. They're coming from other places to go to this camp, and there's a legend around the camp, which most people don't believe, because how dumb would it be to believe that there's some kind of zombie boy in the lake? And so they don't take it seriously. And Paul, while telling us all the legend of Jason, was wrong.
Yeah.
They were attributing Pamela's murders to Jason, and it could be the same thing with 8, to where the kids, when everything happened and it was over, they were telling a story, and they were, it's just how they told it, what they saw, what they felt, because, if you think about these characters in part 8, they don't know the full details of all the kills. I mean, we do as fans because we've seen it all. But these were just innocent people graduating high school off to go somewhere. And then someone started killing everybody. So by the end of it, they were like, oh, this guy, and then they heard all the stories and whatever. And then after, stories get embellished and they change. And that's all I got right now.
Okay.
I'm going to look into that a little more, but I could just see that as simple as, rumor mills. You go golfing in Nevada. By the time the story gets back around to you, you've impregnated 7 women in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And it's like that. What? How do you get Costa Rica or women? But just rumors as they go around. People add more and more and more.
Okay. So New Line picks up for Jason Goes to Hell, and and they kind of rightfully so forget what happened at the end of Jason Takes Manhattan. And that brings a lot of mythology that you've already talked about, and I did love the beginning of Jason Goes to Hell, where they take the damsel in distress and turn it, and they twist it in a way that
setting him up the whole time.
I loved that. I told that to Marcus. I said, bravo,
When that opened up, I was so excited. I'm like, because, again, we have our changes in our movies. Okay, there can be only so many campers that get killed before people stop going to the campground. Now, there are several different campgrounds around the lake, but they changed to the Roy. They changed to this. They changed to that. We've got some changes, which is cool. But where were we again? One more time. I'm sorry.
Jason Goes to Hell and various the changes.
Oh yeah. No, so the beginning was super exciting. You had the girl in the shower, and you're like, something's up.
Yeah.
And then when they pop up from under the tarps and under all the camo and whatever, the full SWAT team in there just blasting Jason.
Yeah.
I was practically screaming in excitement because, in real life, if this many people are being killed around a camp, eventually somebody's going to come and put an end to it. And at the very beginning of this movie, I'm like, this is a full SWAT team and all this. So now we're talking, I was looking forward to Jason fighting all these SWAT team people, and we're like, the girl doesn't trip when she runs and her flashlight totally works.
Yeah.
There was a ton of things in that movie that I loved, And I appreciate it a lot more now than I did when I first watched it.
By the way, the groans Jason makes, that's Adam Marcus.
The what?
When you hear Jason groaning whenever he's being shot, that's Adam Marcus.
Oh, nice.
Yep. I mean, obviously it's Kane under the costume, but Adam Marcus doing the groan.
Yeah, like James Earl Jones and David Prowse.
Yeah.
Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, what do you think about the fact? And Adam Marcus talked about this because he said he had kind of no way to work around it. You know, where you hear Jason's spirits inside one of the cops, and you hear the cops speak.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so if the guy is possessed by Jason, how is he able to speak?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if I had to guess right off the top of my head, I would just simply say that there is still that person in there.
Okay.
But they are just Jason's Necronomicon soul, whatever it is. Just it's too powerful. You'll get the same thing as in many possessed movies, where like the person who is taken over by will pop up from time to time and is able to say something. You know, who am I actually speaking to here? Is this Jason or is this Billy? You know.
Okay.
So that could very well be because they went in the body transfer thing. You know, he was clearly possessing people, and at this point, his soul was on the loose, more or less.
Okay. All right. So, Jason Goes to Hell comes and goes, and then you got Jason in Space, Jason X. I think that's the worst one of the series. I did appreciate seeing David Cronenberg make a cameo in it. I don't know why he did it, but he did it. And I did like Lisa Ryder as a cyborg. I did like watching her kick ass on him. So, and the hologram sequence where they really outdid the sleeping bag thing was kind of funny. But all in all, this movie was pretty shitty.
I agree with you 100%. Once anybody goes to space, they have jumped the shark.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say again that there weren't great parts in this movie. I love the little dork accidentally gets his arm cut off by the frozen Jason falling over, and he's kind of the comic relief. The sleeping bag hologram scene was amazing. Homage to the sleeping bag scene. There was a lot of funny parts in it. Yeah, and the cyborg chick, she made the movie. She was the best part of that movie altogether.
Mm-hmm.
As the smart-ass ass-kicker. I like how they had the machine that would, little nanobots or whatever, that would repair. And, of course, they lead up to this by showing us the kid's arm being repaired.
The moment Jason appeared, I remember in the theaters, the moment he appears as Uber Jason, the theater just broke out in laughter. And I'm like, this is not what these movies are supposed to be doing.
No, I know where they're going with it. I can see where they're going with it. But no, you just lost the hockey. I mean, that's why they didn't go back to that shit ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Or stuff, excuse me. But, once they lost the hockey mask, and I did love the end. Again, several parts in that were funny, and one of them, I love the end when the girl and the guy on the new planet, Earth 2, or whatever the heck it is, are looking at the shooting star, which happens to be Jason and the guy that pulled them out on their way down, burning through the atmosphere. And they have no idea what they're... Oh, it looks like it landed in the lake. And I was like, uh-oh. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
The future.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, where they can go from here. I'm not a big fan of the reboot,
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, like, you need to create characters that you can sympathize with, as opposed to creating a body count. Now, Part 6 had a body count, but Part 6, when the paintball people, when they get killed off, you kind of like them,
Mm-hmm,
and they need to. You don't feel that way when you're on the spaceship, I'm sorry, you just don't.
Yeah, you got to add to the story, not just another body count. And I was very disappointed in 10, not gonna lie. Who was it? I think it was Hellraiser also went to space.
Yeah, that was bad.
Leprechaun went to space, and I'm like, no, stop it.
Yep.
But
So,
what I'm going to do with that movie, I'm going to call that whole goddamn thing a dream sequence.
we'll add Jason X.
Yeah.
Well,
simply a dream sequence.
You don't think it's just in the future?
I hope not.
A dream sequence for who?
Yeah, Tommy hit his head after sniffing some glue. That's it.
Oh my goodness. Well, it is kind of in the future, just...
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Jason 10 or Jason X would be, no matter what movies ever made, it would be the last one. So if there's 17 Jasons, the 10 would be 18.
Yeah.
If there's 22, then the 10, it would be 23 because it's so far in the future. But
Yep.
yeah, another thing I think they did with that, which is it happens worse than with hairstyles and stuff, is that they dated it. It's so dated with the future space stuff. I mean, you can look at like 80 and 83 and whatever, look at hairstyles. Oh yeah, that's 80, but you can still watch today and go, as technology gets better, space looks more real. That's going to be severely dated.
Okay. Well, where do you think they can go from here with the franchise?
Well, what I'd love to see. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't mind the reboots, but I think the movie industry is. I don't know if it's that they're out of ideas or not. Mm-hmm. But I'm tired of the reboots. Instead of spending all this money to remake a movie you've already made, why don't you make a movie that adds to those movies and could possibly explain some changes and this kind of thing? Right now, after the reboot, I thought Derek Mears was a really good Jason.
Okay, yeah.
I like Derek Mears. I think he is a real good character for body language and suits kind of thing. I'm not sure whether or not I'm crazy about... I liked it mostly. I had a little bit of a problem with the reboot. I think what bothered me was the cliches.
Okay.
We got the jock. We got the... I mean, I know that's supposed to happen, but come on. Can we change this up a little bit? I liked it, but... and then they had the couple different options. You had your scene that was missing, but still the extras on the DVD where he cut the guy's head off and then took the mask off versus finding the mask after killing the guy.
Okay.
I thought it was okay. I liked some of, like, for instance, the old lady with the German Shepherd.
Okay.
When the guy's knocking on the doors looking for his sister.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was very authentic. I thought the house looked authentic, and that's what I liked about like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes.
Okay.
I just thought they had good characters. Everything was really authentic. Like my parents grew up in the country, Molalla.
Okay.
And it looked almost familiar, but for right now, it's that's a very, very interesting question because you have a couple options. You could reboot the whole franchise and start over, which I don't like. I'd rather just add. You got 3 movies that are the same. Which one do you like the best? Or you've got one that's part 1, part 7, part 9, part 12, or whatever. Mm-hmm. What I'd love to see is quite simply more Jason.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter if it's campy and corny. I personally would prefer that it is dark and gritty and like scary again.
Yeah.
But I also love the campiness of Friday the 13th because you are literally there rooting for Jason to kill all these idiotic teenagers. Quit smoking pot and having sex. You're going to die, And you're this Jason's creative kills. His kills almost, you hear people cheering in the theater because the kill was cool. It was different, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think his persona took over the movie. I mean, people don't go to Friday the 13th to watch a scary movie. They don't go to Friday the 13th to watch teenagers die, they go to root for the bad guy.
Yep.
And I think the reason why they root for the bad guy is because he's a victim.
Okay.
He's a poor little boy who loves his mother. And people didn't look out for him when they should have. And he's just a big old mama's boy who loves his mama.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't kill a soul until his mom was killed.
Yeah.
And then his dad taught him how to kill.
Here's another thing, too. I know the Simon Hawke novels come out. I've got the third one. But there's also, the end where the grave digger from Part 6 was paid off by Elias to keep the grave. And I know I talked to Tom McLaughlin, the director of Jason Lives, about this. And, of course, Elias is going to pop up in Vengeance. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, so first of all, are you talking about the old guy that's like, you're going to be the death of me?
Yeah, I liked him.
That the guy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I love that guy. He throws the bottle and it crashes and no, that's really interesting. I have not seen Vengeance yet with CJ, but I love when the first trailer came out.
Mm-hmm.
I had just actually seen Never Hike Alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a couple times to watch it. I'm like, fan films. And I watched it. I'm like, that was genuinely a good movie.
Yeah.
Andrew Leidy was great in it. And Vincent DeSanti was a great Jason.
Yeah.
I thought it was a lot of fun. So then I saw, I can't even tell you how many trailers there are for new fan films coming out. But there's a guy in town here that's working on one. He does a lot of the local rock videos here in town.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw the trailer for Vengeance, and I know that it had a bunch of people in. It was this and that, and I was so not impressed. And then I saw this was their first little one to get people to donate so they could actually make the real one. Now, the difference between the first one I saw that I was not impressed with and now is night and day. I am looking forward to seeing Vengeance. They're the ones that have CJ. They've got Harry Manfredini music, and the more I'm seeing it now as what they're filming is coming out, this looks like it might be fantastic. And what I like, too, is like the difference. There's fan films. And then there's films like Never Hike Alone and potentially Voorhees. But Never Hike Alone, literally you could almost install as one of the installments in the franchise, it wasn't, I didn't get a fan film feel from it.
Neither did I.
And again, what I really loved about it is these guys, I make little films myself, and I plan on making a movie this summer I want to get started on, but I love the fact that it was brilliant. They didn't have to spend a bunch of money on actors.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have, it was perfect. It was basically one guy and Jason, and then, so they minimized all the costs and all that, and then the story actually became stronger, in my opinion, by the less people in the more, in-depth acting. And I just thought it was really, out of all of the fan films, and I try to give them all a run.
And people love Tommy Jarvis, especially Tom Matthews. You get that hint, too.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Hey, remember me, asshole?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that really put it just over the top. I thought that was fantastic. I'm actually working on a film with my buddy called Never Hike Alone.
Okay.
And we're doing a 10-minute spoof of Never Hike Alone. It's going to be your same basic movie as Never Hike Alone, of course, shortened up, just the highlights. But I am going to be, going on a hike, but instead of a hike, I'm going on a bicycle ride on a BMX bike. And I've got in town here, we've got a bunch of big old ramps and jumps and stuff in the woods that people made. So, of course, I'll have me doing flips and all this stuff, which won't be me. I'll just land and be like, it'd be one of those corny things. But then my buddy with all his suits I'm thinking about having like Freddy walk by in the Leatherface walk by in the background, and turning, doing the whole thing. But it's going to be BMX, and so Jason's going to be on a little pink girl's bicycle with the ching 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 ching, the little thing, and he's going to be like stalking me like that in this little thing. And I have I've gone through and all the main scenes we're going to reproduce. So in the ambulance scene, when they've got Tommy turning around saying, "Remember me, asshole," I'm thinking about having Freddy turn around and say, "Remember me, asshole." And because I've done a few with my buddy. My buddy's a little bit. He's got the silicon Freddy mask. He's a little bit bigger, rounder than Robert Englund, but when he does the voice, he nails it. And in thinking of doing this little spoof, I don't really have access to a guest star.
Okay.
So I'm going to make the guest star like Freddy, or could be Leatherface. Could be. My buddy owns like $1,000 Jason versus Freddy suit. It's 100% screen accurate down to everything. He's got a full Freddy. He's got Michael Myers, and he just bought one The Hills Run Red or something. He's got the full suit of that. But I thought about adding a couple other. I like doing spoofs because I love horror and I love comedy.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of shorts. But I have an idea for a full-length film. I'm trying to slowly work with someone to help me make, and I know for a fact it'll be amazing because I've watched a bazillion horror movies, and I'm trying to take some of the best things that I like about them and put them into ones.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about 13 Fanboy. We pretty much both got involved the same way, I suppose. The Indiegogo. Debbie Sue's been on the show here 3 times. Yeah, she and Nancy McLaughlin have been on my show the most, 3 times apiece. And I'm a co-producer. You say you're associate producer. My picture is going to be in a scene with Traci Savage, which is going to be nice. And
awesome.
You're going to be in the movie.
Well, right now I send in my fan casting audition.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with that, but being an associate producer, they are at the very least going to name either a character, a business, or a street in the movie after me.
I don't even know if I'm having anything. I don't even remember what producer has.
You'll have to look into that because I think that comes with some of those too. But
yeah,
I'm really hoping. Honestly, there's a speaking role available for a couple of cast or fans. They did that besides everything else. And
I reached out and I asked her. I said, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I was going to see if she'd use my voice for a radio voice in it or something like that.
That'd be cool. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, because
what's weird for me is, and like I said, I'm not counting any chickens before they're hatched or anything like that. And, but I've been on the Deborah Voorhees page for a while, and she's kind of been a real inspiration to me, honestly. Because I make all these little corny skit videos. Yeah. And I've never been sure about them. I make them for myself because I love doing it. I love spoofing.
And I love watching them.
And and I love that kind of thing. Well, Deborah really liked one of my videos one day. And I felt like validated almost. Like, oh, wow. So maybe I'm not just this idiot, maybe someone actually thinks it's kind of funny. And she boosted my confidence. And then, she asked me if she could use my Psycho video to put on her website. And then I won their one of their Master of Macabre awards or whatever. And so, I'm constantly kind of talking with them. And I post on their site and everything because actually I run a Jason site, The Many Faces of Jason Voorhees, that has over 3,000 people. But I love Deborah's site. I just have so much fun on it.
Okay.
I spend more time on there than anything else. And like I said, I don't know if I'll get a part in it or not, but the fact that I converse with them a lot and they seem to really like some of the things I do gives me a little bit of hope that maybe there's a shot that I could do a speaking line in the film, which would be my greatest dream ever. I made my first appearance in a Netflix series last week. I got a tiny little extra part in an ABC series called Stumptown, based out of Portland, Oregon. And then, I want more than anything to go to LA and film a scene with Deborah as my director. I don't know if this will happen. Odds are always against that because there's a lot of stiff competition out there. But like I said, I just, my fingers are crossed. It's weird. It's like, if it happened, it's been building up to this my whole life. I feel like that my whole life has been building up to this moment. If it doesn't happen, then I guess it wasn't building up to this moment.
Well, look at the bright side. Our names are both in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm happy as a clam right now. I would love a speaking role in it.
And another thing I'm going to suggest to you, you should connect with James Balsamo, because I'm cameoed in 3 of his movies.
Oh, awesome.
He goes around to these conventions and he gets these people from various people to cameo in his movies. And I had him on my show one time because I connected with him through Genevieve Rossi, who I had on my show a couple times. And I get this message from him one night. He asked me if I would film my own death scene for Cool as Hell 2. And I just stared at it, because film it on my phone. I called him up because Tom Savini cameoed in Cool as Hell 1. And Cool as Hell 2's got Linnea Quigley in it, who I met. And so I talked to him, and I didn't even have to go to where he was. I just got my brother to shoot something on my phone.
Oh,
and
that is amazing.
Yeah, and I guess somebody else from around here is cameoed in his movies too. Talk about that. But Cool as Hell 2, I made a cameo in. It Wants Blood. He approached me about that one. And I did the same thing, only 2 different scenes, but basically the same thing. And the scenes for It Wants Blood are going to be watched on a television by Eric Roberts.
Ah, how cool is that?
I'm in a movie with Eric Roberts, and I didn't even have to leave town.
Dude, that's really funny. So they just did a Netflix series called Trinkets.
Mm-hmm.
1 season. They just shot it here in my hometown. It came out last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm in season 9, the very first 5 minutes, and then I got a tiny little coffee cup drinker in the back of season 10, the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so much fun. It was like they put out cast. I responded to a casting call one time before that, and my boss wouldn't let me leave. I was just furious with him because I'm like, you can get fucking blackballed if you say you're going to go and you don't go.
Yeah.
And so I was really angry with him. Well, then I got the hook up here with the Netflix thing, and it was absolutely amazing. So my point being, I did a scene with Brianna Hildebrand.
Okay.
She plays the angry lesbian superhero, teenage turbo something or other in Deadpool.
Okay.
So, I mean, in the scene with her, I'm literally sitting, a couple chairs away from her. I'm in the scene with her as they pan. Well, what this brought me to, and I can't even begin to tell you how proud I am of this minor achievement, but I did a scene with Brianna Hildebrand.
Mm-hmm.
She is in Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Who is in R.I.P.D. with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
I personally am 3 degrees from Kevin Bacon.
And Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, serious though, but the whole 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, and I was like, oh man, he's in Friday the 13th. And I think of Kevin Bacon, I'm like, yeah, he's in Friday the 13th. I don't care what other movies he's done. I like Friday the 13th better.
Another one that I got asked to do was Catch of the Day 2. I did shot a scene. Again, it's just me sitting at my sister-in-law's computer desk, drinking coffee and ranting.
And I thought that would be fantastic to be able to do that stuff from home. Like your.
Well, you know who was in Catch of the Day 1? Catch of the Day 1 had a cameo by Jennifer Bonco, Jason Mewes, Jake the Snake Roberts was in it.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here thinking, why me? And James just said he liked doing my show.
That's awesome.
So he's on my friends list, and his production company is called Acid Bath Productions. I might talk to him, and and I got the interview I did with him up on YouTube, but you might want to check him out because you could probably just shoot stuff right on your phone to him.
Oh, dude, I would love that more than anything because 13 Fanboy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you too now. We have IMDb's.
Yep. James actually did mine.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I've been making videos for years,
yep.
And I have no IMDb. Now I have an IMDb. In the last 12 months, I have an IMDb, or I will, once they get done doing it, appeared in a Netflix series, an ABC series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an associate producer in a movie coming out in the theaters. But one of my things was I would love to be able to do things from my phone because that's how I shoot most everything. And I always wondered, and I always people tell me I've got a pretty good radio voice or whatever, and I can always do the fake. Hey, 97.7. Welcome to.
You need to connect with James Balsamo. And by the way, Catherine Parks is in Cool as Hell 2 as well in a cameo. And she was in Friday the 13th, Part 3. Oh. So I'm in these movies, but I've never met these people.
Yeah, no, that's what's funny. It's about 13 Fanboy. Either way, mm-hmm. I'm an associate producer and you're co-producer, so mm-hmm. that's already done. But my dream is always to be an extra in a movie, and I always thought it'd be really cool to be an extra in a movie with a person from a horror movie that I liked.
Yeah.
So either way, being an associate producer, or if I was able to get a speaking role in this film, I would have been in the film with ... Kane Hodder, D-Wall. You watch 100 freaking movies and be like, yep, I was in the movie with that person. And
you need
if you weren't in the exact scene with them.
Yep.
You were in a movie with. I mean, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
Really.
You need to connect with James Balsamo, and he's a great guy. He's really got a knack for this stuff.
Will you do me a favor and
sure.
send me a friend request, and I'll accept it immediately.
Sure, I'll do that. Yeah. Because I think that you really should connect with him because he's got so many pre-production films. But if you look through his Internet Movie Database, he's had Ari Lehman in one of his movies. He's had John Carl Beechler was in one. He's had
that's awesome.
He's had a lot of the Friday the 13th people, and like I said, he just goes to these conventions, and you want to be part of my movie, and. He makes it happen, and he does a lot of horror comedies, really cheesy looking, but you can tell he's having fun.
Oh, absolutely. Toxic Avenger.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend that you do. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Another thing I was going to bring up, too, is that, with the perks and whatnot, I'm not going to be able to go because I don't have a passport or anything and getting away from work. I know I'm going to Toronto for Horrorama this fall, so I'll be doing that. But I'm not going to be able to go to the premiere and stuff for 13 Fanboy. So I said to Debbie Sue Voorhees, I asked them if they do a Doubtfire Face Challenge.
A what?
Doubtfire Face Challenge for suicide and depression awareness. I did one of these originally, and I've had a few of my guests do this. Lisa Langlois from Class of 1984, who's a good friend of mine now, she accepted the challenge, and she did it. Nancy McLaughlin did it, and she had props from Jason Lives behind her when she did this. And wow. James Balsamo, he's done one. And I had others, too. Well, what you do is you video yourself and you take a pie in the face and you nominate 3 people. I'm trying, and I threw this out. Actually, Scotty McCoy, who's written trivia books on Friday the 13th, he did this as well. So Adrienne King's been nominated by me and him, and so is Lar Park Lincoln. And well, I did one with Lisa in Toronto, and I threw it out to the 13 fanboy people and mentioned Traci Savage and Judy Aronson and everybody involved with that. And I said to Debbie, I said, why don't you guys do one of these, because I'm not going to be able to make it, and this is for a worthy cause, and it's not for money. It's just, you just do it and you put it out there because I wanted to get the industry involved. And so, yeah, I'm
Pie Boy.
Yeah.
No, I like the idea. That would be pretty cool to get everybody doing like a viral challenge where, let's see you get pied in the face and then nominate another. That's clever. I like it.
Yeah. Well, originally when I did it, I wanted to get Emma Stone to do it, but I realized that she's a little bit out of my reach, so I thought I'd go start small.
Right.
Yeah. But
give her about 10 years when she starts to come back down to reality. Gotta wait a little bit. When they're untouchable, it's a little harder.
Yeah. But I mean, the Ice Bucket Challenge did so well, so I thought, well, I'm going to try this and see if I can get it to go. And there's some that's agreed to it. It's just a matter of time. I know Adrienne King said she'd do it. She hasn't yet, but it's a matter of time. Well,
it's a good idea because if you think about the Ice Bucket Challenge, all it takes is water.
Yeah.
Everybody's got water. Everybody's got ice in their freezer. A pie tin full of just spray whipped cream is pretty easily accessible.
Yep. And not only that, a little less dangerous because there was some accidents with the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Yeah, no, there was, but I've also busted my friend's nose, pieing him a little too hard in the face.
Yeah, you want to be careful.
Smile when I was done.
No. But, I mean,
yeah, it could be, but that people dropping off 5-gallon buckets trying to dump it, and they can't even dump it. It just falls on the person's head.
Well, I saw Stephanie McMahon do it, and some M&A girls did it to her, and there was ice bouncing off her back, and I'm like, that's got to hurt, even for Stephanie,
For real.
Yeah. So, no, and I'm hoping Adrienne King does it because she was the first final girl, so, and so...
That's what I thought was the coolest thing. I love the people that they're putting at 13 Fatboy. I love the fact that they've devoted to practical effects, CGI.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they're devoting themselves to giving us more of an older school, what we want, what we're used to.
Yeah.
And then when they say it's going to be like Cape Fear and Hush, I was very happy to hear that because that would be a good, I wasn't sure if it's going to be scary or campy. Still don't really know, but if they're saying that they're going to be modeled pretty much after those two movies, it sounds like it should be pretty good.
Yeah. But getting back to what I was saying before, if you want to do a Doubtfire Face challenge, nominate 3 people in the industry and throw it out to them. Even if they're people that I've already nominated, just throw it out there,
Absolutely.
And put it on the horror page or whatever, just throw it out there to them.
I'll do it too. I'll have someone pie me and then I'll nominate 3 people if we can. I'll do it for sure.
Yeah, throw it out to 3 of the. Even if you want to throw it out to 3 of the Friday people, go for it. Right. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, any of that. I'm trying to get the ball rolling on that. So. But Nancy McLaughlin did do it though, and it's on my YouTube channel, and she was a great sport about it. So, yeah, that's what I'm. Because I won't be able to make it to the States to be part of the premiere and whatnot. So, I thought I would try this. Anyway, boy, we're past 3 hours here.
I know. I just look at the clock. I'm like, wow. Well, you know what? When there's interesting things, time is of
Yeah.
No concern.
Well, you know what? I would love to have you come back on next year. Put you on my roster for next year.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on again, give you a year, and see whether there maybe next time, we can talk about 13 Fanboy in more detail about being part of it, and maybe talk about
after it's out and everything's going.
Yeah,
fantastic. Because we got the the early, and then we'll be able to talk about after it's come out. What do you think of the final product? Both of us being co and associate producers, and would be very cool.
Yeah. So, and then we could talk about more of your videos, like Saturday Night Terminator and stuff like that. Don't ever sell Don't ever sell yourself short. I sat last Saturday with my brother, and he's playing video games, and I just sat and watched your stuff, and he'd look over, and all that stuff was great. So don't sell yourself short. I wouldn't have you on here if I didn't think you were worth it.
No, that is fantastic, but I really appreciate it. I did a video the other day talking about some guy called me and liked my videos and my theory, and I was I'm really happy about that. I've like I said, I've had a couple friends that are like, dude, your channel's hidden gold, and I'm like, is it?
I think so. I think you got great timing.
I'm goofy, and I don't. I'm not afraid to do it.
Sure.
Like I said, Benny Hill, Monty Python.
Love them both.
If all those crash into a thing together, that'd be pretty much where I come from, sense humor-wise.
Fantastic. Well, before I let you go, I wonder if you'd do a plug for my show.
Absolutely. You are listening to Troy Oelke on Python's Paradise in New Brunswick, Canada. Enjoy.
Fantastic. And before you go, I was wondering, have you met, what celebrities have you met, and what were your impressions?
Okay. So, I've hung out with Korn, Rob Zombie, AC/DC. Met John from Chips, Daisy Duke. In fact, I have a funny Daisy Duke story. I drew this big picture when I was like probably 11 or 12 of like the General Lee jumping this, crevasse or something. Mm-hmm. And I drew this big picture because my dad used to take us to the auto shows to meet the stars. So we were on our way to meet Daisy Duke, and we, as a family, watched the pilot show for the Dukes of Hazzard, and then ended up watching the series. Well, I drew this picture for Daisy Duke, and we got there, and my little brother, he didn't have anything. He was standing behind me, so I'm like, here, give her this. And she kissed him. Daisy Duke kissed my brother because of my picture. Well, as much as that bothered me a little bit, I also was just as proud that I got my brother a kiss from Daisy Duke. I met let's see, Bones.
What was AC/DC like?
Oh man, very, very cool. So we went to here in Oregon. We have what's called the Rose Garden, and it is the big full arena. It's where the Blazers play. And this is the first time I'd ever been backstage at an arena. My brother and I rode around all day on the AC/DC Angus Army tour bus. Anyway,
okay.
We went and saw the concert, and then when we went backstage, these guys had a giant crystal bowl full of ice, and it was full of Coors Light, and they had probably 200 Snapples. They had all this popcorn and all this stuff. So we went backstage, and they had all that for everybody, and then there were several tables, and it looked like a cafeteria in a junior high school.
Okay.
And they said, look, you're going to sit here, and when the band comes out, do not get up, do not ask them for pictures, this, that, and the other thing. So Angus walks up to me, and I'm like, hey, man, can I get a picture? Sure. So I stood up, took a picture with him. And then, but what was really funny was, so my brother and I rode on the Angus Army bus all day. Mm-hmm. And on the bus, they're giving you what we were doing what was called tour stops.
Okay.
We'd stop at like Beaverton Honda and this and that, and then different businesses, and we would hand out swag. We had like little keychains that would play Back in Black. We had shirts. We had all this crap, and we got to keep any of that we wanted. So I kept a bunch of stuff, and then our very last stop was at a Guitar Center before we went to the Rose Garden Arena. And while I was there, I had my girlfriend meet me there because it was close to my house, and I gave her all my stuff. So I didn't lose it. Here's all my swag.
Yeah.
And so when we got backstage with AC/DC, I didn't have anything to sign. My brother, he brought 2 albums, like literally albums.
Mm-hmm.
And I just reached in my pocket. All I had was a guitar pick. So I'm like, hey, Angus, man, can you sign this? And he signs it. No problem. Then no second thought. So Angus moves on, and then Brian Johnson, the lead singer, he comes over. And he's signing everybody's stuff, and he looks at me, and I hand him this guitar pick, and he looked at me, and he said, "What the fook is this? What the fook is this?" And I laugh. I'm like, "Sorry, buddy, that's all I got." And he's like, all right. He flips it over and signs the other side. So my guitar pick has Angus signed on one side and Brian Johnson on the other. But it was really funny when he was like, "What the fluke is this?" The only person I didn't meet was the drummer, but they were, not only really just really cool people that made time for everybody, but it was really fun when they did talk, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And he like cracks up, I'm like, sorry. Oh, man, but
you mentioned Rob Zombie. Did you meet Sherry Moon?
I did.
Holy cow,
and,
she's gorgeous.
Some of his dancers, I was in a contest. Okay, so the radio contest that got me my name, Spam Checker Jones.
Yeah.
I was in several radio contests. I won more radio contests around here than anybody in town. And for the Rob Zombie contest, if you won, you got a limo ride down, you got dinner with Rob Zombie, and then backstage passes.
Okay.
So what they had was called the Super Feast for the Super Beast. And it was a Fear Factor knockoff. So I showed up and I ate bull testicles, goat brain, guts, a pig snout, and 5 live night crawlers.
Okay.
Well, I came in a very close second. And so I got my backstage pass and everything, went down and met him, and that was cool. But I didn't win the limo thing. And the guy that did had some girl that peed in the back of the limo, and they all got kicked out and didn't get to meet him.
Oh.
And for Korn, I went and met Korn. I spent 3.5 hours in a honey bucket porta potty with another grown man in 98-degree heat for backstage passes. And I told the guy, I'm like, as soon as the DJs they opened the bathroom door, bam! I sat right on this toilet seat. And they're like, "Oh man, Troy's got you now," and I was going to make myself barf because no one likes to be around barf.
Okay.
And I can make myself barf no problem. If you ever had a contest where it's like, all right, 6 people are going to sit in this new truck, and the last one to leave the new truck wins. I would just simply eat as much as I could, and I would go barf all over everybody, and they would jump out instantly, and they'd be like, I'll just clean this up now in my new truck. But so Korn, I spent, it was so funny because I spent 3.5 hours with the grown man, and I told him, I'm like, hey man, if you just get out right, okay, if you make it 3 hours in the honey bucket, you get a backstage pass. If one person leaves, the other guy gets both of them. So I told the guy, step out right now and I'll give you mine. He's like, no, they'll call me a sissy or whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's because you'd be a sissy. And so he made it. He made it the whole way, and I said, and me too. And then, it was so funny when I went back and was talking to the lead singer of Korn. I'm like, yeah, man, I just spent 3.5 hours in the honey bucket with a grown man to meet you. He looks over at the bass player, slaps him on the shoulder, and says, did you just hear what this guy said? It was so funny. They were blown away. Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not spending 3 hours in a porta potty ever again. I don't care who it's to meet. But I did it. Dang it! It was like it became a challenge, and I take the challenge.
Well, it was great having you on tonight, Troy, and I'm going to put you on my list for next year as well.
and see what else we could talk about. And yeah, we're both part of 13 Fanboy, and I'll connect you with James Balsamo, and we'll see what else can happen from there.
That sounds amazing, my friend. Again, thank you very much to Greg Gilbert.
Yep, Python's Paradise. Yep. Yes. Well, you take care, and I look forward to seeing more of you.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much for giving me the call, and I really enjoyed our conversation. You have yourself a most wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. You take care, and God bless.
All right, buddy. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.